Click this button and we're back. And Adam beautifully just... Oh, that was so nice to open to. Yes. How?
We're all doing well with English. It's a day.
I'm doing fine with English. I just said hello. It's just the voice was weird.
It's a beautiful day.
Oh,
It's just a
we
day.
don't have.
We've just been listening to that in the background. Let's
But
go.
we don't have the rights to that.
Yeah, we don't have rights.
Well, to be fair, I'm so bad at singing, it's fine.
Yeah, no one will recognise it.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't have the rights for that as she pours her branded drink.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's fine. I'm wearing very branded stuff, and so is that one. If you want to go over to the red bubble and get that, this one is not ours.
Just touch you, pointing at your food.
So
How's your Professor Peppercorn?
just in case anyone hasn't seen,
Is there a good way of doing this? There we go.
Forcing yourself to drink with your right hand, so it's the right way up.
what is this elol? No, it's fine. It's Australian Critical Role.
Oh, we're all in the underdog.
Is that my theory? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yay!
Yes. Hi, internet.
We need to get better at our openings, guys.
I mean, I'm fine with
We
the.
need
I'm fine with openings. I'm fine with
Yeah, you
closings. I'm fine with anything I need to be. It's just, again.
Point over there.
What?
Point over there. Can you point over there? Right hand. Improv! D&D, let's go! We should what it is today.
Good evening. Welcome to Alignment Unknown, the podcast, the stream, the show, whatever you want to fucking call it. No, that's my bust. What? I have notes for today's session, and I'm very aware I'm not very good at focusing at the moment. So I'm going to pretend these are here, and then those who are at our Patreon can see that I didn't do anything the paper said. So go and get Patreon to find out what we should have done.
Pastana was really good. She wrote in very big letters, don't forget to get paid.
You were proud of
Same.
yourself when you wrote
I
that.
mean-
box.
Actually, I wrote, do not forget.
Do you need to forget to get paid? This is a really good idea, yes?
Do not forget.
This is my feeling. It is my feeling.
I'm sitting in your NPC giving a
Oh, Lord.
Dinosaurs start feeling this end. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. It is my feeling.
Please, can we meet to pay $1?
Oh, we just gonna pay Monty Python characters for one shot. I wish as a Gumby has to be like a barbarian. Flower arrangement.
Today's punishment. Anyway, yes. I'm just going to run around slapping people with fishes in that one
Stop
shot.
that. I'm being silly.
So, hello. Welcome to the Alignment Unknown show. Look at that. It took us about 10 minutes when we got into it. Any announcements that we need to do before we go into their game that we will be playing this evening?
Can we announce that we love them?
So,
Hando's House of Keithy's House of Cards tomorrow downstairs at the Exchange is a friend of the people involved.
there is a lot of the Leicester theatre community
He does funny.
doing a show, or at least attending a show of one of the other veterans of that said scene. If you would like to come along, it'll be fun. Speaking of that, their scene, it is something that I know we celebrated Alan Bennett's birthday last week because. But there's a proper celebration that should be celebrated this week, and I know you're all very excited about this. But it's Ed Spencer's birthday today, so...
I mean, is it actually his birthday?
It's actually Ed Spencer's birthday.
It's Ed Spencer's birthday or first birthday?
I really didn't sit going, should I say it?
Is Ed
Should
Spencer's
not?
birthday or birthday?
No,
It's
because let us just fix that. So these
You're a broad
three
cake.
have
And by
decided...
cake, I mean gluten-free brownies so that I don't die.
Huh?
And she opened the packet, was like, they're really
We should
small.
probably fix this because Ed isn't here, so we're not celebrating Ed's birthday with the
But
cake.
there is a candle.
So
Send him a picture.
apparently,
Yeah, just in case.
apparently 2 weeks ago was our 1 year anniversary of a podcast, which I don't agree with. It's not.
Basically, we missed
If you're
it, like-
following the podcast properly, you'll know that was the anniversary of our one-shot pilot episode, which...
This is the first time it went out.
It was first time it went out technically, but the campaign proper started on the 18th of June, and I would say that is the beginning of the podcast.
So in which case...
Because you don't need a pilot to do a podcast.
So in which case the live show is our first birthday.
It's almost like I lined it up fucking perfectly.
I mean, it's an excuse for fucking cake. It's also
Yeah.
almost like I went, this is the
I
Saturday
would-
that I needed to fill.
I would like to point out I am a well-meaning but ultimately shit aunt of this podcast.
I mean,
Like,
I'm
tried.
glad you've
I
identified
tried.
yourself well.
I know
Hannah,
who
we'd
I
like to blow out the
am.
candles.
I was going to say, while she sits down...
I mean, as the person who is the most diseased at this table, I feel that
Yeah,
me
but
blowing all over...
There's a chance one of us three is eating gluten today.
No.
I mean,
So if you blow
unless
it-
you think you've genuinely, like...
I'm not
I've
gonna
definitely
die
in
anytime
gluten.
I've had toast
I live
today.
in
Maybe you're not
gluten.
going to, like, blow it all over.
I've had
I mean,
toast today.
I haven't got my dentures in today, so
I
it's
mean, what
fine.
you could do is just don't
Boopadoo can do it.
Hannah's
Boopadoo dies.
blow them.
Blow.
Fine. If you all get a cold, it's your own fault.
Happy birthday to Stuart.
Yay!
Happy birthday, London, kind of ish.
Mr. Spence, I love you. Look, I need that tape!
Just remember.
I would suggest taking from the bottom.
Shush, that's naughty. We shouldn't be talking about that on the stream.
So, how do you eat the candles? Is that part of it or what?
Um,
Yes, eat it.
Yes,
You
all
put them
all
up the
of it up your
nose and inhale them.
Up the
Oh,
door.
You are both really scary.
You can put them down now. You're holding them like you were a baby.
So at some point, you'll notice that either, for the podcast listeners indeed, you'll hear that either Klaxis' voice gets a little or just Planchett doesn't talk for a bit, or Hororae just says, pivot, you do. So, because they're going to start eating cake at some point.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. There's
Um,
one for each of us.
happy birthday.
Now I feel like I should got balloons or something.
I mean, much like,
Good improv.
you know, listening back to this podcast tomorrow morning, I'm going to think we had balloons.
Just like this.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be so catty.
We've got balloons. I'm wearing a party hat. Podcast only.
Yeah. If you pay for the Patreon, you'll see them. Yeah.
There we go. I've got a crown. Well done.
I'm proud of,
Should we
D&D.
play a game?
Yeah.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
proud of all three of you. Yes. Right. So we
I hope they're
are.
on a
We are.
disappointment to you.
We are done with announcements. Any other announcements that anyone would like to do? I am going to say cheekily to keep an eye out on the Ed Spence's that their like feeds. He's the one who played that there Mason in campaign 1, who was so lovely and definitely will be back.
Yeah, please.
But I've been hearing some good news, which I won't spoil for everyone. But if he takes Sunday evenings, I'll be pissed. I love you, Ed Spence, but I will have to take you off my mailing list anyway. And just keep you in that folder I have on my desktop. Anyway, so let's get on to you all know about the folder. You've at least been in there once each, which is a compliment, I think. Anyway.
I'm not entirely sure what this folder's about.
And I can't decide if you're saying that we were in the folder with Ed Spence or if we looked at the folder with
Alright,
Ed
is this
Spence.
like
and I
a
can't
shit
decide
list or like a
which
spank list?
is better.
Just saying.
I roll for disgust.
It's
What's-
it's 11.
What's really lovely is I just say these things because I get this response. I don't have to say shit. Oh, you see a box on the side? It's a mimic. It's going to be a mimic. Always a fucking mimic. I can't take it, and then the house eats them. Or when you get to level 20, you go, there's no Vecna, there's no Lolth, there's just a mirror. Why anyway. That one wasn't as funny, I know, but hey. Back to the theme slide!
I feel that's a reference to some...
System error. Alignment. Unknown.
And we're back! I didn't even bother telling them because they are so professional, they're always ready. Unlike this prick who's going to start reading some words.
Rapping or reading?
Kyra? Sorry.
Oh god, that's horrible! She embarrassing! She called me a prick! That was a horrible mix of emotions!
How was the session? Oh, we didn't do anything. We just sat there for 2 hours and mocked Kyra, and then went home. We had
a usual
we had 15,000
It was a
viewers.
fucking worst of times.
We had 15,000 people viewing. They were doing comments and mocking her as well. It was great.
Speaking of which, I know I've been really lax on the Twitch chat, so I apologise now. I've got it there. If you tweet at us or whatever they call it, what the kids call it nowadays, I don't know. If you use the chat room, I'll pretend I read it every now and then. I did it on the test stream because there was a lot less content on that one. Anyway, taking the challenge of the ruins of Ellipsis, the group dispatched the bone naga that seemed to be the cause of the haunting before finding that a rift to the Nine Hells set in the gangway between the two turrets had still been floating around. Anyway, as suggested this was safe to leave, the group reported their findings and success to ship Tolus at the captain's court, only to be granted tenure at the ruins as payment and ties to the city. With this being sorted, excuse me a second. Oh, that was disgusting.
He dabbed on camera.
He dabbed off camera.
I'm making that a gif.
The moment Steve Archer's soul died.
That's good. That's going to be one that Facebook recommends.
If you go to Patreon, you can see me flossing.
I'm paid!
Yeah, and it's going to be good.
No. A towel is
It will
involved.
be.
How wide is the gap between your teeth? Oh, I see.
Depends which teeth you're talking about. That's still a terrible film. Still a terrible film.
You nightmarish human!
Shush! Back to me being stupid.
Hell.
With the. Come on, you used to be an actor. You used to be. Yeah. Let's say actor. Anyway.
Hannah's had cocaine.
But it's the post-1448 surrealism.
This is our blue mood, man.
Hannah hasn't had cocaine. She's just taken advantage of that new tier that we started. Whoever paid for that high tier on the Patreon, your money went somewhere wise. Like up this nostril or that. Anyway. Stop encouraging
Nothing
Stephen.
but cold and fluid.
Ooh, hard stuff.
It's fucking
absolutely.
That's the sentence I was on.
Just keep going. They can't talk. Just keep going.
Please just keep going.
I can't even do edit points anymore.
No, you're not. I'm sorry.
I'm a professional.
I never claimed to be a
With this being sorted, much to Godhand's annoyance, the group went to discuss their new-found compatriots. Klaxis revealed that he came from a village up north called Fireshire. I don't know why my accent changed. And it's from...
no.
Shut up! And it's from a family of clerics. Hororae revealed her father was a clockmaker and fueled her want to study time, and Planchett revealed that although she's a doctor, her knowledge is very much in the history of Luskan and not Nine Hells. Ellipsis shared with the group that he had died fighting a beholder with a group before stumbling onto the Cavern of Xetherelon and pledging himself to serve as a Knight of the Cognition. After much deep debate about one's time, the group headed to bed and Planchett was visited by her patron briefly, awaking the next morning to a gift of a Book of Shadows. After agreeing to travel to Raven Rock together, you meet Ellipsis outside the Winter's Palace, where he hands you 250 gold pieces each as payment for yesterday's exploits, with a wink and a smile, knowing that Godhand is pissed at you, and you head out to the Blackford Road.
Thank you, Steve.
10 minutes to get through the we used to be professionals.
No,
I've
we
never
just
been a
were
professional.
able to edit, Steve.
Cubase made us professionals.
Cube.
QB.
And like Pro Tools or any decent what? So I paid for all of it.
Right, I'm gonna just have
So my loves,
Well, what's wrong with you?
as you head on to the Blackwood Road, what would you like to do? Is there anything you'd like to talk about? Anything you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to do? Be?
Oh, I've got a hangover.
You've got a hangover.
I've got a fucking huge hangover.
You have a hangover. Awesome. What about Planchett? Eurovision was last night.
Yeah, it was a great bottle of wine. It doesn't exist anymore.
She ate the bottle.
She aged the entire. No.
What? No! Oh my god!
I didn't say anything.
I believe the phrase I say was which teeth.
I'm gonna stab you. Planchett.
As you
It's
all
awesome.
hear the sound of beating wings and a dragon lands in the middle to deal with the shit. Anything you'd like to do? Anything you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to be? You've got hangover.
Hangover.
You're
So
hangover.
is 3 dots with us or not?
Free Dots is indeed with you. You last agreed to join him travelling towards Raven Rock. However, you didn't agree that you'd be going to Raven Rock. You'd just be travelling with him along the way and see what happens.
Yeah, it's pretty swish.
Hororae is kind of doing that middle distance stare when you're thinking about stuff. She's mentally plotting what else she's making.
Cool.
Do we see your 1,000-yard step?
I mean, probably.
Good. Right.
I want to be like she's doodling in a note, but we're walking. And it's very. I mean, I've done that.
Yeah,
I
I think we will have.
just for the fun of it, then you can hear for some reason, just muffled from somewhere around Klaxis' vicinity.
I might pop in as it.
Oh no, I'm gonna be there.
I will just dash you into the woods.
I mean, that's fine. I deserve that. I don't know why I was singing that one to begin with in the first
Blanket over him. Go full budgie.
Why are there Welsh people in here? Oh, Budgie, not Canary. Sorry.
Don't justify it. Don't make it feel good.
I don't feel good anyway. I never feel good.
Wait, I'm gonna ask Hororae what you're thinking about because you seem pretty distant.
Just working on some ideas.
What ideas?
Go on. If you're not including, if we are, I'll ask anyway.
I definitely don't have a notebook in my hand.
What are you doing?
Just writing.
I can see why you're such a shit rogue.
So we.
I feel like I should ask to roll insight, but I really don't think I need to.
No, you don't.
I'm not planning on writing like
I'm just gonna take her pen.
a non-fiction. Give me back my.
You're not stealing her ideas.
I'm not stealing her ideas. I'm going to write about us when we become famous. Give me back.
You'll get your pen back later.
No, I want it now.
I just have the idea that so I've made these goggles that mean that I can effectively gives me dark vision. I've got an idea for kind of a lens that allows me to see through the eyes of Pivot or hopefully other constructs.
That's cool.
I'm just working out the intricacies.
There you go.
Can I actually have my... Oh no, it's there. It's a day.
Sweet, that's fine.
Quite what are you doing with the time?
Keeping this guy quite happy.
I mean, you've just shoved it back in his back.
And he's quite happy. Quiet. Just there. I'm just gonna just tap him. Shut the fuck up.
Oh!
Shut the fuck up.
Where's Ellipsis in this marching order?
Ellipsis is walking a couple of feet ahead of you guys. Just
Understandable.
Hororae
Understandable.
speeds
quite,
up.
you guys are walking at quite a nice, like, let's go with just a relaxed pace, whereas he is very much power walking.
Yeah, Hororae speeds up.
You sure you lot weren't a party before I joined?
Definitely not. And
I
I
mean,
wouldn't dare suggest that we are a party now.
I mean, there's a load of laughs happening back there at least.
Well, you've got to find some entertainment in it.
Can I hear any like this?
Yeah, he's not being tactful at all.
That's fine. Well, we're not a party because we're roomies.
I'd like to have it officially noted on record. I hate the idea of that.
But it's not wrong.
Oh look, a common cause. We can all kill the tiefling.
I'd really rather you didn't. It took me a long time
I'm
to get
not
us
going to
into
kill
it.
you until you prove yourself needed of murder. Oh, okay. You
I
prove
don't
yourself
feel safe
less
right
innocent
now.
at the moment
What?
because your need to be murdered versus your innocence are very conflicting.
Don't know how to feel about that.
Neither do I. It's
don't
really,
think-
really
I feel
weird.
Like this isn't a safe space.
I mean, it's not. It
Um,
really. What do you think about the walk path between Luskan and Mirabar says safe?
There's literally a sign right there that says safe.
Oh,
Someone
Nice
has
script.
been robbing the safe makers along the way again. Brilliant.
well, this is my first time outside. So.
Someone dislikes you wholeheartedly right now.
Hi.
I've always found that if you believe everything you read on a post, you're a bit of a gullible twat anyway.
Did you read that on a poster?
No, not a poster. I read it on the arcane internet. Sorry, that was not meant to go that way.
Right, let's play Switch. Right, so
Just so you guys are aware, as someone who has just travelled back from Mirabar, although it may seem safe to yourself, sir, there have been sightings of frost giants up and down the pass. They keep coming down from the spine of the world. We don't know what's going on. They never really come this far south.
What did they do? What makes them unsafe? 'Cause I mean,
What?
surely if you just meet somebody on the road, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to kill you.
Okay. You're 5'6", 5'6". Nice. Okay, imagine if an 18-foot man wasn't looking where he's going, and he stood on you. Would you say that they don't do anything? They need to do something to make themselves
Just a
dangerous.
very unhappy accident.
I mean,
I
okay.
mean, I die and he's going to pick me from his toes, so...
I mean, I don't think he's going to notice.
Just don't think
wait,
you
so
should
just,
say
you're saying
anything.
frost giants don't normally make it down this far?
I mean, they've been known to come down occasionally, but they don't usually make the travel. They normally stay the other side of the mountains.
So what's making them come down?
Not a clue. They've just been recent activity between, like, the trade pass has been terrible, apparently. Nobody's leaving Mirabar, nobody's coming to Luskan from Mirabar, and nobody's returning from their visit if they were there. You've got the Mirabar district there? The market area, the north of the
Right.
bank? Yeah. Anyone who is there has been there for a while because nobody wants to risk it.
And that's the road we're on now.
The Blackwood Road, yes.
Sweet. So that would have been like nice to be told that before we started leaving.
I mean, I did say that I didn't want you to come.
I mean, to be fair, we're on my to get with the codex, so we're not going to where you're going. We're just going the same direction.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Well, no, the codex isn't there. I don't want to be.
Yeah,
So yes, you do as you please, but my intention is to follow and talk to Xetherelon as Ellipsis plans to. So actually, no, yes, we are going.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm still not expecting him to give you much.
I'm
'Cause
sure you won't, but it's
he
better
isn't.
than...
You know those monks, monkish types who seem to learn by metaphor and riddles.
Yes.
Yeah, he thinks that paladins are monks for some reason.
Perfect. I'm sure I won't, but it's the first lead of any kind that I've had since finding the codex missing, so it is the best first step.
Indeed. Cool. Is there anything that anyone else would like to discuss or play with before I move on to the next part of your traveller?
I think I've annoyed everybody
Even
now
though
already.
Just a heads up for everyone, it is the 86th of autumn, so you know the exact date. I've never done this for you guys, I'm sorry. This is now the 86th of autumn.
I appreciate this. I currently have a journal going.
Good.
Getting quite cold then.
So the winds are starting to pick up a little bit. There's no sign of snow yet, but you know that around the last 2-3 days of autumn, snow starts to appear and settles in very strongly for the beginning of winter. However, I will skip a little bit ahead in your travel. The first point of interest along the Blackford Road between Mirabar and between Luskan and Mirabar is the Blackford Crossing. There is a small off-stem of the River Myra that seems to cut off into an underground pass. However, it cuts directly through the stretch of road on the Blackford Road, and that no person has been able to make a bridge big enough to stem it. So they use the Blackford Crossing. It is a very rudimentary ferry system would probably be the best way, but made by arcane means. So you come along, you ring the bell one side, and it summons the ferry, the plank of wood that acts as the ferry from one side to the other, and then travels as it please. However, as you're coming up to this, you can hear 3 voices coming out. You're about, I'd say about 200, 150 feet away from the crossing, the tree line kind of very much smothering the right of you, the cragland that stretches up to the base of the spine of the world to your left, very much giving no cover in that side. But you can hear up ahead by the crossing, and you can see these 3 distant figures. Some squabbling. The voices seem to be very shrill. And very angry and what's the word? I can't think of the word. Being very short and snappy with each other.
Can we make out what they're saying?
You get the sense of the thing that you can hear as it starts to kind of creep up, so you can hear the conversation as you get closer and closer. They're arguing over who will ring the bell.
Aww.
That is quite cute.
However, as you're getting close enough to understand them now, without being racist,
That's always the best way to start a sentence, Dave.
without being racist, goblins are very easy to discern through their voice, their mannerisms, their body language, everything like that. The voices sound like goblins, but there's something off about them. As you get closer and closer, you get the sense, and I'm going to use this specific word, that it's a mixture of goblin speak and braying. I think that's the specific word I needed. Braying.
Oh god.
I speak gobble.
You speak goblin? They're speaking in common at the moment, but they're currently the voice, the dialect of goblin in the voice is there, but again that sense of kind of like sheepishness or goatishness as they talk.
Do I recognise the tone? Would I recognise the creature it might come from?
Just seems to be some sort of like farmyard braying.
Would I know anything in terms of history, in terms of golden clans?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go just sneak on up to where I'm not able to see.
I'm imagining we're literally on a relatively open road.
They haven't noticed you because they're all facing the river.
Yeah.
Basically, there's not really much sneaking to be
Yeah,
had.
there's no cover apart from the tree line if you want to sneak into the tree line.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that.
And I mean, I've also got
Pivot.
pivot.
I mean, yeah, that's on his own. That's quite intimidating to him to drop.
Exactly, so that's why I probably would try.
Well, I still will. Because
Anyone who would like to hide, make their stealth with advantage.
I mean, to be fair, if you're doing it,
I'm going to say you can, but with just a straight roll then rather
So
than...
you're heading into the tree line, so
Yeah.
there's a tree line.
Yes,
Oh,
there's a tree
right.
line.
I thought it was literally just like...
No, that's
Right,
Okay, so natural 20, lovely. You're hiding behind pivot.
Yeah.
Hororae, you staying on the road or you...
If I see everybody else going up, I'm going to fight.
Ellipsis stays walking straight.
I got 11.
Then
11, lovely.
then
I
don't know
somehow
what's
have
the
not
point.
managed to
No,
hide
it's fine.
behind a giant fucking shit.
Are you staying on the road or are you
No,
going
yeah,
with...
stay on the road.
Lovely. Klaxis, you just sneak off. You guys don't even notice it. You just kind of... One minute you're chatting to him, the next minute he's gone.
Bye.
That's about right.
And Ellipsis just kind of has this kind of heavy sigh, just starts walking up, hand immediately placed on the hilt. Planchett, you sneak behind Pivot, trying to take some cover, but you realise that although he's about 10 foot, and you being 5'6", it's hard to follow the gait of such a large creature to cover your legs.
Yeah.
So you're hiding behind him, but between his legs are your little legs in the back.
Totally sneaky.
And for yourself, Hororae, did you say you're going to sneak at all, or are you just
No.
cool? You just keep up pace with Ellipsis walking up as you walk up behind the goblins. I will allow anyone else before Ellipsis does, because you know how it always goes. Anyone want to announce themselves or anything like that?
Nope.
Nope.
Can I hold an action?
Yeah, you can hold an action.
If anybody looks like they're about to attack,
Yeah.
can I hold the action of firing a fireball at them from between Pivot's legs?
How have you got fireball? Oh wait, you've got the
Oh, yeah, I've got the cantrip.
you've got fireball.
Firebolt, sorry.
Firebolt. Like, I was going to
Okay.
say fireball
It's
at level
one of
2,
them.
level 3.
I'm just that
You're
good.
not a wizard.
I'm just that good, guys.
Okay.
No, yeah. So Hororae's just gonna not massively close. There's still a bit of distance, but she's gonna walk a bit. Problem, gentlemen.
As you say this, they all kind of freeze and slowly turn round, and all of you see. I'm imagining that you keep some kind of distance in the tree line, but you're enough so you can see. You see 3 goblinoid figures turn around, but it's as if someone had given them polymorph potion or polyjuice potion, and given them, say, a billy goat's hair in the middle of it. So there are 3 billy goat humanoids at the crossing, arguing over ringing the bell. They turn and stare at you very awkwardly.
Such a douche.
The other 2, either side of the middle one, pushing forward. And you go, hi.
Problem?
Would you like to ring the bell?
Is there a particular reason that you haven't?
Yeah, the troll.
So which of us is slapping Steve
Oh,
first?
is it really taking you this long?
Oh no! I've literally written down exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But this is the first time there's been a pause, which I can say it.
And
I'm still in the trees.
Still in
Just,
the
I'm gonna stick like 30 foot.
Yeah,
I'll be within 30 foot of them, but just in the
Yeah.
trees, it's like kind of happy.
that's cool.
what troll?
There's been a troll that has he starts pointing towards the river edge, the water's edge, where you can see there is a little stick with a bell in the side of it, and there is a rope just under the water's surface that seems to guide the ferry.
Yeah.
But he keeps pointing down that way. There's a troll in the water.
And how do you know that?
There were 5 of us, and now there's 3 of us.
Perfect. Did you manage to establish what it is this troll actually wants?
No.
Beautiful.
Let's see what else they know quickly.
May I just insight them?
Yep. We're going to
Where
say
I
check.
am.
Yeah, you overhearing this. You're about, so the tree line ends about 15 feet away from the road. So you've got about 15 feet of woods ahead of you. 11. They seem to be quite genuine. They seem to be quite frightened. However, it's that kind of bravado thing of kids when they, Stand By Me. If we shortened it from a 2-hour film into this brief scene here, it's that they've all kind of gone, someone needs to go do this thing. Anyway, I have done another reference to the 80s for you.
Yeah. It's almost like we know that's what you reference.
Here and now.
Yeah.
Here and now.
Here and now. So,
Just shoot the reference
what is it that you need to use the platform crossing for?
We just wanted to go over and we have business. Business. We have business.
Pressing enough business that even though you've lost 2 of your party, you're still determined to cross. Sounds like very important business.
Very important. Very important.
Well, I suppose if we're going to help you achieve this business, then I don't think the least you can do is perhaps share with us what that is.
Are they carrying anything that I can see?
You can see that they have like rusted short swords on their belts. They look very, very clumsily tied on. But other than that, there's not a lot to them.
Sweet.
Well, we're not allowed to talk about the business because the boss said so.
Who's your boss?
I can't remember his name.
Can I edge closer to the water from where...
Insight.
You can indeed. Inside check, go for it.
I probably believe in the whole
Well, can I just see if there's like any actual
14.
markings or signs of a troll?
Make a survival check for me, or a nature check of your choice.
25.
25, lovely. You can see there are markings of some large creature that has come in and out of the water.
Sweet.
You know that trolls have quite spindly kind of fingers, so quite long and pointed. These seem to be markings that could be used by that sort of thing. Anyway.
Insight check was 14.
14. If the shit-eating grin that he pulled as he said it didn't say enough, he's definitely lying to you when he says he can't remember the name of his boss.
Yeah. Just checking that was the character's grin and not just your grin.
Hororae, in this moment, I am the character. Don't let me teach you how D&D works.
Steven, you get inspiration.
I did it, Dad. Anyway, he doesn't watch this. Fuck that.
Okay, cool. Cool. Daddy never came to my home.
No, this is not the reason that all the writing is dark. Stop it. He never loved me. Anyway, I'm not going to do this. No, it's been in my head for 2 weeks.
Steve, please don't have this mental breakdown on the stream.
Yeah, but it's documented. It's good for everyone.
Is it?
Jeremy's talking.
Steve kept saying he didn't need a counsellor.
So right, this is the therapy session.
Good. Hororae just kind of looks over at Ellipsis, a bit like...
Ellipsis just walks up and rings the bell.
Thought that might happen.
Yeah, I was going to say. As he's doing that, can I step out the woods behind that? Morning.
As you do that, the 3 goblins who turn and see you kind of panic and start slowly backing away from the lot of you to walk up the river.
Just kind of be behind them, so
Yeah.
they kind of knock into it.
You are now given away. Planchett, as Pivot just kind of moves around, and you're stood not noticing that Pivot has moved.
I've just got my umbrella, just like...
Just love the idea
Cool.
of
So you're
backing
basically all
into
flanked.
these goblins.
You're all like semicircling around them as they're on the bank, and Ellipsis just rang the bell. You start to see across the water, slowly travelling towards you, this a large kind of like 15 foot by 15 foot wooden plank that just seems to be floating across the water. You also notice that bubbles start to appear on the water surface just next to the bank. Yes, they start to back up, and then they back into Pivot, turn around and panic, and then they just all look at the water, and then look at Pivot again, and look at the water. And they go,
I wish that he had enough facial features that he could grin at them, but I don't think he does. Like, he's pretty solid.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
Early Arnie face.
Oh, can you install some like eyebrows on him?
Oh!
Just eyebrows.
Hororae would not waste time with such a thing, and I think that's a fucking brilliant idea.
Just like he looks like TikTok from Return to Oz.
So we have 2 options here. I'm guessing that we can go in the water, or we can push through that one and points directly at Planchett.
Oh, Oh, please don't.
Hey,
I
Lolly,
suppose you have that
Oh,
choice, but it'll
oh.
be interesting to see you try.
Oh, please don't. Don't challenge them.
hey, Lollipop Guild. What's your boss's name?
Oh, God.
Who are the lollipop? Is he
You.
talking to these guys or?
I, Uno, dos, tres. Lollipop Guild.
I didn't realise you spoke
Goblin.
Icelandic. I was gonna make a joke and then realised I'm not funny. Anyway,
Atari come
Took
in.
us so long. I'd be so down for that.
we're not at liberty to say.
Well, you can either wait and not answer the question and that comes out, or you let us know when we help.
Yeah, we're not allowed to tell
Why can't you tell?
because we signed a chitty.
Sweet.
Chitties aren't binding, though.
How useful is that when you're like squashed?
We'll be squashed if we tell you, I guess.
No,
That was the bit at the bottom of the chitty. It said if we tell you, it will be squashed.
Right, but if you don't tell us, then you'll probably be squashed.
Ah, fuck it! And they just backwards fall into the water.
Oh, that's quite fun.
Interesting.
That's...
They are the soggy lollipop guild.
I don't think they're going to be soggy for much longer.
What do you guys do? Just quickly.
Is the water
How
still
far away is
bubbling?
the platform?
The platform seems to be coming across. It's about 20, 30 feet away from the bank now.
Is there still
How
bubbling?
wide is the crossing?
The
Like,
crossing
how long would
is
it take
about.
to cross?
It takes about a minute, I would say. It is about 60 foot wide.
I would like to hazard a guess that it will take longer than 2 minutes to eat 3 goblins, regardless of their form. So I was saying we just get on the platform.
I mean,
That was actually quite nicely thought out.
I'd like to lead this chitty, but I well.
I imagine it has been taken to the depths with them.
Well, it depends how deep this bit of water is. If they're right on the shore,
Well, you're
they've
welcome to
just fallen
find out.
backwards into 6 inches of water, and they're thrashing around.
Oh, man. I'm not
So-
going to go there. It's fine.
A couple of seconds pass, and just as you can see, it's about 5-10 feet away from the bank now. The wood is kind of floating towards you. You notice dreadlocks start to appear on the water's surface, and raises up as green skin underneath it, pink pale eyes rising out as a hooked nose, and very pointed fingers start to creep up onto the side of the bank and pull itself up. It stays in water. The water hits about the bottom of its ribs as this huge kind of grotesque, sickly green-looking troll kind of pulls itself up and leans forward and goes, "Let's make sure he's got the voice right today, because Brian
There
Blessed
is
was."
no right, Steve. We haven't met them yet. So
I mean,
it is right.
If you're paying for the Patreon, you know that I've set a voice already.
No.
Because that's how this works. I have to set them beforehand rather than improvising everything, because now we're getting people to pay for it. Anyway,
I mean, or you just edit your notes.
never. I am honest to the core. Anyway, that's why I'll tell you all when you're pissing me off. Anyway, so he leans over. Is someone looking to use? Points towards the wood. The
Very.
ferry
Platform.
word. Couldn't words.
That'd be quite nice.
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay. Cool. You're not just the ferry passing back and forth, yeah?
Yes, please, yeah.
Just there, yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Oh, are we good to cross?
I mean, I don't have any issue with it.
Sweet. Like, cool. Just kind of that's
No
fine.
problem.
That's cool. Yeah, correct. No, fine. Cool.
Cool. Cool.
Thank you for your assistance.
Thank
You
you.
want to walk onto the platform?
He just starts to slowly sink back into the water.
It was going to be so.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Cool. It's all right. It's all right. Skip
Getting on the
that
banana.
page.
Just ruined so much of
That
your
page. No, I need that one. That's got some bollocks at the bottom of it.
I mean, I quite like how we've made people kill themselves now.
Yes!
Good.
I love that apparently they were so scared of this troll that they killed themselves. But
I
we've
mean,
just gone,
people can swim, guys.
yeah.
I mean, it's totally possible, but at the same time, I like the idea of them just going, I saw that over in 6 inches of water, and they're still there just going, it's all over me, the trot.
They're gone. Fuck it. Right, back to this.
Yeah.
Why does this grift never work? Anyway, as we meet the new Thieves Guild in town. Anyway, they're not. They're really not. They were exposition.
So, we're on the ferry now.
You are on
Yes.
the wood.
While
Ellipsis.
we're going across, can I keep my eyes peeled for those three in case they
Yeah.
just swim into the other
Can
side?
I save your
I'm
life?
still holding my action.
Can I do save your life on Prof? Gotcha.
Yeah, go for it. Roll dexterity check for me.
Do I need to roll anything?
Roll dexterity saving throw.
7.
Oh, sure. Still might have worked. Dexterity. 8. Motherfucker.
You go to grab her, knowing how this works, and normally it's that fun little jolt, but she kind of senses you and tries to turn, but as you both kind of fumble it, she trips on one of the planks that are joining the ferry together and just face plants into the ferry. As you then look down and go, saved your life.
I'd rather you tripped and do that again.
Tell your mum I saved your life and send me a postcard from your trip.
I think my mum's dead.
Oh, fuck.
I think
Right.
Hororae just looks at Ellipsis
Wait.
and just like,
Cool.
rolls.
I'm
What?
going to ring the bell again. And he just rings the bell and the wood starts to slowly move. He just
Yeah.
takes a little bit of a walk back and runs and jumps onto the wood.
Yeah.
They should probably fix this at some point. It's a very bad system.
Wait, hang on a minute. Your mum's dead.
Possibly. Oh.
I mean, I wish you'd told me that before I made the joke about your mum.
Is this an apology?
No.
Oh.
It's understanding of the future things to come.
Oh.
Sweet.
Oh.
Well, that was very,
Enlightening.
I don't think it was. Let's just stick my hand on.
999 gold bottles on the wall. 999 gold bottles.
How long is it
Unless
to
we can
regrow?
drink them,
Take
please
them
don't sing.
Throw it at her.
What?
998
I have
bottles
done
on the
nothing to any of you except be nice.
Cool, that's great. So we're now trapped on here for a minute, so this is awkward. Anyone good at swimming?
No.
I was just going to push one of you.
I mean,
so-
who's technically now?
Everyone's technically good at swimming. Anyway.
Having grown up in a city, I probably am not.
So you guys take a minute or two, or a minute specifically, because we will do specific times. Basically, go to bombarded.bandcamp.com to get the music that you hear every now and then, because it's been done by that there Bombarded podcast, which are really good. Anyway, so you guys get to the other side. Hororae, you said you wanted to keep an eye out for the goblins. Just
Yeah.
give me a perception check quickly.
13.
Don't see any sign of them as you get to the other side. You don't see any signs of them or like jettisoning out of the river or anything like that. But yeah, that is that. Skip all that. I had so much planned for today, and it's fine because I get to do the second part even more now. Yeah.
When we get inside, is there any sign of the really, really happy dopey troll?
He's just gone back underwater as you
Okay.
guys left.
I'm essentially feeling me like the bus drove, like.
Just so you're aware, Eeyore voice was the note.
Yay!
Which is why I wanted to make sure I got it right, and I didn't. But anyway.
It was close enough.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys.
The voice of a panda.
Which is funny because the next NPC has Tigger voice. Anyway, as we ruin all the childhood. Anyway, I didn't need to do that. My parents did enough for me. Looking at the next bit, we'll do some reading at this point. I'm sorry. My sense of humour really ruins things.
Painfully similar.
So, some reading for you. Question for you before I read this.
Yes.
You're still planning to go to the cavern rather than just following with him and break off?
I am.
Cool. As you follow the Blackford Road, snaking along the bank of the River Myra, a gentle rain starts to fall. Within the hour, signs of civilization are all but gone. A dirt track that has been made from years of travel between Mirabar and Luskan seems to be deserted for once. The whistle of wind between the trees to the south of you seems to bring up heckles in the more cautious of you. As the sun hits the midway mark in the sky, Ellipsis takes a left turn directly for the mountain range stretching out to the north of you. A faint trail seems to be emerging out of the cragland. Hororae, you recognise this path immediately as the path up to Raven Rock and the disappointing plateau that you thought to be the location of the Codex. Skip that bit. Two or so hours later, up the path, even with your warm clothes and acclimatisation to the cold north, things are starting to ebb against the chill of the spine of the world. Your breath is taken by the vision that appears before you as you reach a plateau about 100 to 150 feet wide at its furthest points. A huge edifice-like carving stands guardian over the clearing in the stone, a beautifully carved raven with wings spread out as if coming into land on the boulder that supports it. In the distance behind it, you notice a lone figure on a horse, but you blink and it's gone. Ellipsis immediately starts to walk towards the raven. Is there anything you'd like to investigate or anything here whilst we're here?
Can I investigate the reason?
The raisin? Yes, you can indeed. What sort of thing are you looking for it? Are you just...
I'm just going to see if it's anything linked to a certain queen.
Yeah, go for it. I would go make a history check for me.
Wrong couch.
Yes, what's the name?
4. I'm going to go with, because of your love for said queen, you know this isn't tied to the Raven Queen, but you don't know what its origin was. There is specifically a story from up north that you've heard about an area protected by a raven, but you're not too sure what specifically that history is.
Sweet.
Cool. Anything else?
Do I know anything historically wise?
Make a history check.
Thank you.
Just to see.
Oh!
It was cocked beautifully on the 20, and then just slowly fell to the 8, and it was just slow enough that Kyra had all of her hopes and dreams shattered.
That's still 8 plus 6 is 14, isn't it?
Yeah.
14.
There are several areas of the north that are famous for the origins of barbarianism. This is one of them. There is a tribe or a collection of tribes known as the Utgard. Oh god, I wish you hadn't asked it. Let me just quickly check if I'd written it down anywhere. Because fuck's sake, D&D. I believe... barbarians. Let me make sure I've done it right. I mean, that would be fun. Make sure I've got this shit right, because it's a fucking nightmare to say. Here we go. UTH GARDT.
GARDT.
God.
Jesus. That's a shit name.
They are essentially the origins of the animal totem barbarians. There were 5 specific tribes. One for the raven, one for bear, one for wolf. I've got it somewhere on here. One known as the Great Worms, and one known as the Thunder Beasts. This is the site of the Raven group, or the Black Ravens, which died out a couple of years ago due to about 600 years ago, when a certain war was being fought between dragons and giants that we've mentioned a couple of times. But yes, that's what you know of it. It's the site of the origin of the Raven Totem, or at least if there is such a thing you would know of.
The figure on the horse, I know it was kind of
Brief. Yeah.
Anything remotely distinctive?
Lacking a head.
It's quite distinctive.
Do I know any kind of myths and legends, or
There is always an old wives' tale of a headless horseman.
Yeah. Any.
There is at least 16 that spread around the north alone of our home was visited by the headless horseman, or this village is haunted by the headless horseman. It seems to be one of those myths that occasionally you're not you when you looked, as like I said, you looked once, you saw it.
Yeah.
You look again, it's gone. You're not too sure if it was a trick of the eye or if it was just the boredom of walking up this path again and your mind playing tricks on you.
Okay.
But you definitely saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. As Klaxis has been investigating the Raven, and you guys are all just kind of milling around in that area at the moment, and you've seen Ellipsis just walk directly towards it. You notice first, Klaxis, that there is an opening underneath the Raven that leads down as if like a stairwell into like the basement underneath it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's immediately dark in there, so Ellipsis just once again takes his great sword, hits the light cantrip on it, and just starts walking down towards down the stairs towards this apparent cavern of his deity.
I shout to others and be like, is there like, okay, chaps, lasses, whatever, people.
Hello. Where we going? Well, I said.
I've already followed.
Cool.
Didn't say that, did you?
In my head.
I'm
No,
going.
I mean, I did, but you spoke over me. She's so rude.
Get to fuck.
On the way down.
Yes.
Let's
I
go.
don't know why people only want to kill me.
Yeah, because my characters aren't me. We live with your character every day.
That is mean. No, give me back.
Not saying anything. Anyway, cool. So you guys travel down again a good 200, 300 feet. At least those trying to keep attention to the distance. You get the sense that it's about 300 feet underground as the stairwell that you're following goes from this kind of very thin corridor, big enough that Pivot can get down it, but it looks thin on him, so it's only about 10 or 12 feet wide at any point. You follow it down for about 300 feet and it starts to open up into this large kind of parapet that sits overlooking a vast black inky cavern. There is a small kind of like altar on the edge of the stone, which Ellipsis just immediately walks up to, places the great sword onto the altar, and just walks back, sits on this like little stone that seems to have been placed. You see, there's a couple of them placed to make some sort of seating, and just crosses his arms and watches into the blackness for a moment.
I sit down next to him.
Cool.
Yeah. Quite excited. My luck's out.
Remind me who has dark vision. I'm imagining it's just you.
I do now.
You do through
Goggles of Night.
Goggles of Night, sorry. I was going to say that your again, my words mixed up. I thought you had the creature thing.
No.
No, you've not made that one yet.
Not
That's
made
fine.
that one yet. I made the Goggles of Night, and then.
And you've had
creature thing is
you've
the
made
next.
the lens, but you've not linked the lens to the construct
something
yet.
along those lines. Yeah.
Yes, that's cool. You guys sit for a couple of minutes in complete silence, unless anyone wants to say anything. But Ellipsis is just sat, kind of very stoically staring into the blackness.
What's he like?
He's a prick. And he's definitely playing on waiting. I normally responds immediately to the altar. He's doing this for effect, I can feel it. Such an arsehole.
Okay. Do you think he'd be amenable to some questions?
I mean, he's basically a god of knowledge. He loves questions. Whether he answers them, fuck it, I don't know.
Okay. I'm just going to be quietly excited.
As you sit in the silence, and this time you do hear it, there is the beating of wings. Quite large wings. And you notice coming out of the blackness in the distance this piercing silver ancient dragon form floating towards the landing, but it's getting smaller and smaller the closer it gets to you. And at the point near the parapet, it shrinks down to the size of about a 10-foot dragonborn who just slams down into a superhero landing, stands up in just very gaudy and ostentatious massive plate armour, kind of grins down at all of you as the flecks of scales and such kind of ripple as it finishes its polymorph, and looks down at Ellipsis and goes, "Ah! Fallen Knights! Brilliant! Have you got anything else for me today, or And Ellipsis just looks up and kind of very half-heartedly goes, I've done Luskan, can I have my oath now, please? And he just ignores and stares at the four of you. Ah, friends! Hello, what's your name? And leans directly down into your face, Planchett.
Hi, I'm Dr. Planchett. How you doing?
Takes your hand, it completely wraps around your forearm. He is huge, even for a dragonborn.
Lovely to meet you. Great landing.
Xetherelon, you are...
Dr. Planchett. So,
Doctor in what?
history.
Ah,
Mainly Luskan history, so later. Can we do questions?
I mean, if you've got a doctorate, surely you should have studied it enough, right?
Always room for more study.
I mean, that's very true. Finally, a decent student. I mean, not student, sorry, visitor. Visitor.
Thank you. This is Klaxis.
Hello.
Klaxis.
Hello, Klaxis.
Hororae. Pleasure. Pivot.
Ah, tiny. Cool. I mean, if he's tiny, imagine you three. What can I do for you all? I mean, I'm imagining he's going to do his thing in a bit, because he points at Ellipsis, because it's not really something we do with audience participation. I mean, I'm happy to do it if you want it. And he kind of grins at Ellipsis, who genuinely, his eyes roll, and he just kind of turns to look away, waving at you, free to get on with whatever you want to do.
Well, I can wait. I mean, he's the one that came here and invited me.
He's just going to sign himself to a contract, and it's if I can do anything before, I rarely get visitors other than my patrons is more of a warlock term. My knights. He just grins at you.
Okay. Anybody want to do anything?
I look over at Hororae and be like,
Well, we met your knight
Mm-hmm.
in Luskan. I had been on the hunt for the codex, and you may be aware it's...
Oh, you're really barking up the wrong tree. They are gone for the next. And he kind of sits doing the mental arithmetic. 508 years?
Perfect.
Well, at least that's the calling card. They said, can you look after it for this span of time? If we're late, just wait longer. If we're early, then don't worry about not having the kettle on.
Perfect. Well, it being the font of a reasonable amount of knowledge, I was hoping to at least find something to go on.
Oh, but doesn't that feel like it's really easy coming to one place and getting everything?
Oh, you never get everything.
I mean, that's very true. But, you know, they have books of everything that has ever happened. If you're looking for history, knowledge and all that, they've got it.
Hardly looking for history.
Okay. What sort of thing are you looking for then? He just, again, leans down into your face and grins.
She does not flinch, even the tiniest bit.
Oh, that's fine.
Time.
Yes.
To understand it.
I mean, you're a human, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you've not got enough time to understand time, love.
Oh, I'm sure I can make it.
I mean, I'm sure you can, but hey, I'm just giving a warning. He just kind of backs up again, realising that you're not flinching or anything like that, and turns to Ellipsis again. It seems to be kind of goading him a little bit, going, Conquest boy, these lot don't flinch easy, do they? Anything anyone else wants to ask?
So many fucking things.
Start asking them! It's not a fucking game works!
Alright.
I
If
can't
one
read your
wanted
mind.
to understand time,
There we go.
where might one start?
Watches. Clocks.
That is not understanding time, it is measuring it.
Yeah, but you've got to understand it to measure it, surely.
They're not mutually exclusive.
I mean, they're not mutually exclusive, but I'm just giving you a head start.
I can measure time perfectly well.
Okay. Then if not them, I'd start talking to chronomancers. People who play with the time now rather than measuring it. They stop it, they stretch it, they squeeze it, they do whatever. They use the flow of time like a baker uses dough. Find a chronomancer. Probably best place to start.
Where would you start when you're looking for one?
I mean, wizards and that lot are really annoying to find when you need them. They're a bit like buses. They're always on the floor next to the fighter, halfway through the fight. Anyway. Kaylee Jam!
Just like,
Still need to make that t-shirt. It's good now that I bought it. Oh, I love that.
Chronomancers are hard to come by because they're exploring a facet of magic that might not be tolerated by certain cults. Or cults, companies, classes, people, I don't know. The sort of thing that you're... it's kind of close to necromancy with what it can lead into because, you know, we start playing with the flow of time, we then reverse things so it doesn't happen, such as death. It's, I would start looking at necromancers and find someone who seems a little more... A necromancer who is good. Probably the best thing I would say. Or at least chaotic.
Doesn't that feel like foreshadow?
I won't ruin her character for a second campaign.
Thank you. Still wouldn't say no to some slightly more interesting specifics.
You know when you have an entire library in front of you and you've got a codex which you can kind of go, right, I know that this floor is looking at this. It's really hard to pinpoint the books when you know the floor it's on, but you don't know what you're looking for, if that makes sense.
I
Like,
understand.
I mean, I know that you always go to that area for Pratchett, you always go to that area for Gaiman, but at the same time, there's a reason that we struggle to find the cans and cards. I made an ethics joke, which even I went, I don't I get it. I know who Kant is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Steve.
Yeah.
If you pay for a £100 feature on Patreon, I have an encyclopedia that explains some of my jokes, but even I don't get it. Yeah. Yes. Adam is still staring into the camera. Thank you, Andy Dwyer. They're much more handsome. Anyway. Yeah, I can't exactly point you in the direction of it. Much like time, it's really hard to keep it linear.
Mm-hmm.
So I can point you in the direction of Arcadia down south, where there are definitely people who have played with time magic, but at the same
That in
time,
itself is more than helpful.
they are also very there's. It's not that they're hard to approach as people; they're just very bad at social situations in Arcadia. If you go there, you'll understand, but at the same time, I'm sorry now if you go there on my say.
Well, you've narrowed the library down to a floor, and that is much appreciated.
Indeed. Any other questions?
Alright. Okay, number one, how do you spell your name? I like to get my
I've literally
sources
been pointing.
correct.
I've literally been pointing
Oh.
at my book
Oh,
since you
Well,
wrote to Z.
Depends which language you speak, because there are those that say it's spelt,
TH, yeah.
and there are those that say it's spelt. That joke went completely under.
N-I-P-P.
Now I've got that sorted out and I can
You've got it?
cite you correctly. Okay, so how long have you been here in this particular...
Sorry, the acoustics are really good in here every now and then. I just...
There was a toilet like that once, it was really good. I feel that.
Showers.
Ah.
Best place.
That's huge.
Just maybe you're worth it.
Shower cap.
Just gold.
8,763 years, give or take a few.
Is that how old are you?
8,674.
And that's how long you've been in this exact cabin?
Yeah, I was
So-
born down here
Ah!
out of necessity.
Necessities?
So, are you familiar with the God principle?
What?
Belief is what a god runs on.
Yes, yes.
So, I'm technically not a god, I'm a dragon, but at the same time, I have paladins that follow me and they use my knowledge and such to gain power. Because, unlike certain churches, knowledge is power, not ignorance of it.
Feel that? Feel that? That was a burn.
That was a good one.
Okay.
Just
Looking at you, lol.
all Western religion
So you were here when the Black Raven's tribe was here.
Yeah,
What were they like?
noisy.
Oh. Oh, they were barbarians, I suppose.
Nomads is normally the word they prefer. Barbarian
Nomads?
is kind of like calling. Is it rude to do? You wouldn't call me scaly.
That is fair.
I mean, you would if you were using it as a descriptor, but at the same time, you're using it as a slur. Barbarian's a bit rude when some of them are quite smart.
That is totally fair. So why were they noisy? Were they like, did they, were
They're a tribe of barbarians, they fight each other for fun.
Fair.
They're barbaric in nature, they just don't like being called it.
Fair. I've noted that down. I'll remember that when I write this up. So how did it all go down? Like, 'cause I know they were wiped out during like the war between you and the giants. How did
Oh
that-
no, I wasn't warring in that. I was, so, now we're going to ethics again and it gets all bad. So, if you look at certain scale colours of dragons, you'll notice that certain coloured dragons do the crime.
That's a very broad brushstroke.
Yeah, it's really hard to say that there were, say, two races of chromatic and metallic, and the metallic are the good guys and the chromatic, because they're kind of the good guys in their own rights, and they've done a lot of good things. Like, that time that the dragon cults were trying to take over the place, and certain dragon queen may have eaten the cults because she got pissed off by it. That would be that sort of thing there.
He's allowed to say he's dragon.
What? Don't think that's how it quite works.
Probably is.
I mean, I normally eat the person that says I can't, unless they're a bigger dragon.
You met many bigger dragons?
Yep, 2.
What were they like?
Big.
In personality?
In everything.
Oh.
Where do you think Dragonborns came from?
I'm not writing that sort of book.
Different character.
Making a dragon ball.
That's a very different kids' film.
I don't know what the poly relationship is. Anyway. Oh God! I just love that every time you hide in your shirt, it becomes extra extra creepy.
It's
Just
poorly,
distorts the Vecna
poorly
face.
scaled Vecna.
If you go to Critical Role's shop, you can get this t-shirt. It's very good and very soft.
Just like Guardian.
Good to hide in. Back to the game.
Okay, so you were perfect because you were a metallic dragon rather than a chromatic dragon. It's the chromatic dragons that were having
Yeah,
all with
red, green, black, white, blue. They're the bad guys.
Ish. No, I'm not going to go there. Okay, so what were you doing? Like, were you just observing? Or did you, like, I don't know, do a...
There are two ways I can
red
answer this,
cross
and one of them is less impressive than the other. Would you prefer the impressive one for your book?
I prefer the accurate one.
I was on a gap year.
Fair. It does happen. It was 600 years ago,
I was exploring the Underdark.
Did you get any dreads or anything?
No, I didn't get any dreads. Why am I struggling to keep this? And why is none of this written down, Steve?
Got a tattoo of a turtle.
Menzo Baranzan or bust. Yes. Yeah. I was studying the Underdark and trying to understand certain layers. Apparently, there is more than one in there. It gets very.
Can I come back here at some point?
I mean, I don't have a door, so it's kind of open policy.
I like.
If you
Part
can
of
summon me, then you
research.
can. Because if I'm not by the parapet,
How do
then
you summon you?
you have to have a weapon that has been bonded to me.
I don't think I can. The only thing I've got is an umbrella.
Yeah,
And
kind
it's a good umbrella, but I don't think I can bond it.
of. Do you hold it up and
Yeah, no.
kind of leans down and sniffs it, and then comes out? That's it. That's nice wood on that.
What?
That's very nice wood on that.
I know. I found it in an antique shop.
Yeah.
It's getting really cheap. It's so cool.
Is that antique shop still running?
I haven't been back for a while.
Yeah,
What?
probably wouldn't bother.
Why?
Wow. Why would I ruin other people's games?
What else have I got? What else have I got on me? Oh, I've got a dagger. Would a dagger work?
Let me ask you this on a scale of 1 to 20. How charismatic are you?
I have.
What's your charisma modifier?
What's your charisma modifier?
It's
Oh,
+2.
actually, it's quite good. +2.
2, 15. And how strong would you say you are on a level of 1 to 20?
Bang average.
I mean,
Which is
if you,
surprising.
I'm going to suggest this. Not many of my
What's
knights.
having?
Not many of my knights are fighters. However, they occasionally have to be pulled into the line of duty. If you work on your strength, I can give you a bond with a weapon. It's called multi-classing this part. You've become a paladin.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that.
How did you not see that? That's literally what it is.
I'm a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Doctorate in history,
Doctorate
not
in
D&D.
history.
Nothing else.
Oh, there's a
I was just
character.
going over- So,
I love that you were just seeing it as like a phone number.
basically, yeah.
Can you give me your number?
Yeah, you're thinking of a paladin of me.
Yeah, come here and just shout into the cavern and hope for the best.
That's a good just on Tinder.
You haven't looked around the interior of here, have you?
It's pretty dark and dark.
And he coughs at this point, and two kind of very regal silvery wings come out of his back, which are emanating light, and you notice the ceiling around you gives this kind of weird kind of sparkle, almost like glitter, and you look around and you realise that there are bodies frozen in place against the wall, which he then kind of leans down again and goes, "Ice magic freezes bodies a lot better than normal ice."
Second thoughts, can I just send you letters?
If you can work out my postcode, yeah. Dear Xetherelon, the Underdark, under Raven Rock, please.
That's close enough.
BF2. 4RG.
No, we're in the Mirabar district, so it's MB2.
Oh, I'm Blackfoot, sorry.
just see like weird looking goblins though, just curious.
No goblins.
No, no fruits not there.
For the podcast, I looked around.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
just raise a finger and point at her like, "That's fucking one, right?"
That's a thing.
Right?
Very different.
Or a really weird goblin.
No.
I'm guessing I'm going to go chat to Miserable Guts over there, if you're finished.
I think so. I'm gonna send you letters.
Sweet. Do you know how, like, because you're like the god of knowledge and whatnot, I've not had a chance to go home. Are they alright?
Where's home?
Like, I wrote it down because I definitely remember it. It's
Fire shit.
Yeah, I can remember it was Fire's Heart or Fire Shit.
Not many fingers in pies in Fireshire. Last I could tell you of was 200 years ago. There was a raid with 2 frost giants. That's all I know.
Sweet, that'll do. You right?
Yeah, you?
Yeah, no one's asked us all. It's quite good.
Thank you. It's notable when they all come down here, they expect power, they expect love, they expect everything else, and then they sod off and I'm like, hey!
I promised you letters.
Yeah, he was asking me how I feel though, you know, and it's...
That's
How do I feel about those letters is the question. He grins and looks at you, and they go, back in a minute, and walks off to Ellipsis.
I'm gonna take that as a yes to the letters.
He can't stop you, so.
It's true.
He drops down to Ellipsis and slowly starts to grow in size and stature again, starts to become a dragon, and takes Ellipsis in his teeth and disappears off into the cavern.
Well, shit.
Like, do we, like, for like a minute's wait, like, do we stay here or do we, like, go or?
So you have marshmallows?
No.
Oh, okay. Just thinking, you know, we could do some bonding. Feel fire.
Kevin comes over and just puts his hand on your shoulder and shakes his head.
That's a no then. Okay.
So you're off to find a necromancer. Scary.
Apparently so.
Uh-oh, question.
Question.
Yeah.
In regards to, say, you know, knowing lists about necromancers and slash chronomancers, would I know where, well, the sage thing, would I know, is there a suppository somewhere?
Sorry, you want to know
Like, how to find the information about chronomancers?
how to find it? Like, you're looking for a census
Yeah.
where you'd go, I know that this chronomancer lives at 21B. Yes.
Or something adjacent, census adjacent.
No, that's fine. I would say that your best chance would be that each, again, I made the joke, but at the same time, each city has a census of who lives in that city as a permanent resident rather than a travelling salesman, so to speak. So if there is anyone who is registered as a patron or a resident of a certain city, they would have to give over their information of occupation as well. Say, I work in some sort of like magic guild that looks at time or death or something like that. I'd say that that's where I would look if you were to look for information trying to pinpoint the locations of chronomancers or necromancers.
Cool. There is.
I would go that you know that the famous ones are all dead. At least that you know of.
Sorry.
Because fame comes after. It's posthumous. A couple of minutes pass as you're having this conversation, and then the dragon head just appears, kind of floats up at the edge of the parapet, almost like a Punch and Judy sketch. Just like, and Ellipsis is kind of stood on the head, walks off it as if coming out of a lift, and just turns around to the dragon and goes, right, so, wow, that, cool, I've got a bit of a migraine right now. Can we go now?
Well, there's no marshmallows, so yeah.
Could I just ask you one more question? Like, is that fine?
By all means do, yeah. He just kind of starts walking towards the altar.
Yeah, definitely did something. Do you know there's like a big like sword, like Leigh and Queen kind of sword thing?
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that, or like do you know what that is? I'm not gesturing this huge big old sword. It's like probably not that big, but.
Which one are you looking for?
Wait, what?
There are 4.
I mean, the closest one will do me kind of right now because I thought there was just the one.
Last known location of the closest one would be in the Underdark. There was a drow fighter who tried to take over Memzo Baranzan, and he was buried with it.
I mean, that's quite fun. Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
Is he you and him alright? Because he seems quite shocked.
Yeah, he's just. So the problem with being a paladin of a god of knowledge is you get certain gifts. Every paladin does. Any of you magically inclined?
A little bit.
A little bit. Where do you pull your magic from? Sorcerer?
Yeah, where do you pull your magic from?
What? I get it from my boss, and boss gives it to me.
Boss.
Yes.
Cool. Warlock.
I'm not keen on that term.
Religious people aren't embarrassed about it. They just accept it. Warlocks always act like it's porn. Why?
He just employs
Own
it.
your kink and get on with it.
He's a pimp.
It's not my pimp. I'm his tour
Looking at
guide.
you, internet. Anyway.
New t-shirt, own your king.
D&D, own your king. Okay,
This is not
Dungeons
fun.
and Dungeons.
I'm sure there's people who like dragons out there. I've seen the box.
So, you pull your... Back in we come, my loves. You draw your magic from a patron of some basis that you manage to use fleetingly but not unequivocally. That make sense?
What?
You've got access to the heat, but you can't control the fire.
Yeah, I suppose it works.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sort of thing. With paladins, you get a constant. You're sat in the pool, and someone has their hand slowly turning the heat dial over and over again, and it never really goes down. And your body slowly starts to get better with dealing with the heat, but there's a point where your body is just going to start turning into slush or into some sort of celestial being. We don't know. There's only one way to find out. We either have Chicken Supreme or we have the new Supreme. We don't know.
Sounds risky.
With great risk comes great reward. Ah. Speaking of which, we have one more thing to do, Fallen, and he the dragon comes rearing up and backwards into the cavern, and looks down upon Ellipsis, who is currently stood at the altar, and he just takes this deep breath in, and just before the release, he looks down at Ellipsis and goes, "All ties to pasts must be broken," and he releases this torrent of white fire that slams into the blade on the altar, smoking the entire altar area. Ellipsis immediately jumps backwards, trying not to get caught in it, stops breathing the fire, and there is just a melted puddle of metal on the altar. And now your tenure begins. And he just disappears off into the cavern.
How's Ellipsis looking?
Ooh.
We'll work that out after the break.
Oh, perfect.
Right, let's take a quick 15-minute break. Come back for, if you're looking at your time, we'll come back for 8:45 for the second half of the session. And then we will continue in a forward march. Cool, the second part gets fun.
Yay!
Back in a minute, guys.
You're worth it.
You're worth it.
Can I be worth it?
No.
Oh.
You're worth some.
Welcome back to Alignment Unknown Part 2, where the first half should have been a warning. This is going well.
It's going great.
Yeah. I got questions. Answers.
My brain wasn't working good enough for questions, so I
Cool.
stopped.
So, what's just happened for you guys as a recap on these ones and these ones? That was for you guys as the camera, those three in front of me. Just in case the camera did not give away. I'm not introducing this NPC yet. Why is he doing this again? I don't know. That's in a couple of sessions.
And back.
So, Xetherelon has just destroyed the great sword that you already know is quite personal to Ellipsis. And your last question before we entered the break was, how is Ellipsis looking? You walk around to look at his face, and there is just kind of like, there is that terrifying look that a parent gets when they've been broken too much. It's not angry, it's just calm. And he's just staring at the altar the entire time. And you start to notice that there's kind of this electric blue energy that keeps running across parts of his skin. And his eyes keep kind of, almost like if there was a room in his eyes, someone's turned the lights on and off, and they keep going blue, and then back to normal colour, bright blue, back to normal colour. And then, without warning, he just roars into the cavern, and two blue wings spurt out of his shoulder blades, arcing out with electric energy. There is no skin linking what would be the kind of like the fingers between however bats' wings work or whatever. Excuse me. But they are made of electric blue energy. Because it's me, I'm going to do this a bit different actually. It's not just electric blue energy. If you want a complete reference, go watch Highlander 1 and the bit at the end when the ghosts and the...
It's an 80s reference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's 84! It was set in the 90s. And, oh man, okay, cool. Yeah, because Ellipsis is definitely going to be that. We did Prince of the Apocalypse last campaign, it's fine. So yes, the wings burst out, his eyes just go completely blue as he roars, and there is kind of a glow coming off him, and then everything just goes quiet again, and the wings kind of sink back into him, his eyes fade down to normal, and he just sits panting on his knees, just focusing the entire time on the altar.
I don't think we should talk to him, but I don't think we should leave him on his own.
But I'm quite happy to leave him.
I don't.
That's...
Hororae's going to kind of just like slowly and calmly walk up to him and just kind of carefully put a hand on his shoulder.
As you place your hand on his shoulder, he kind of shakes almost as if waking up. And goes, right, fucking giants. Okay, fucking... okay, cool. Excuse me, I have given my half of this promise. I promised to bring you to Xetherelon's cavern, and I will now be continuing on my merry way. Good day, and starts to walk towards the stairs.
And that's it then, I suppose.
I mean, I have no other places to show off. Your tour guide is there and gestures to Planchett and continues walking.
Is there anything remotely, like it's just like a melted puddle of shit on the...
You go over to the altar, and where it looked like a melted puddle, you now notice that it's actually as if there is... it has been frozen into the stone, but it's been kind of almost melted into the stone below it, so it sits in perfect form almost, but embedded into the stone, and a layer of ice is currently sat across it.
Okay. I'll follow him out.
Cool. Anything else for anyone else whilst we're here?
I'm going to probably just like... I'm following this.
So,
Cool. You follow out. He is power walking with complete rage. Pulls. Just realised this. I've never explained this to you guys. I do apologise. As you've been following him this entire time, his shield is actually designed to look like the head of a dragon made of obsidian, with just a pale silver pearl in the middle of where the eye would be. Realised I didn't do that in the other session. Excuse me. However, why I'm doing this, he's taking it as you come up the stairs behind him. He takes the shield off his back, places it onto the clips that kind of sit on the right gauntlet, and starts weighing up the longsword in his left hand, and just starts walking with purpose towards the crag, the channel down to the cragland below.
Why do you even do this?
Because
you seem like a painfully intelligent person. Yet you're dedicating yourself to a life decided by someone else.
He is continuing to walk whilst he's as you're talking. Just so you're aware, he is not stopping.
She's marching after him.
I don't know what life is after death, so I am.
Seems to me you know far more than most, based on what you said the other day.
Okay, I know what life is after death, as in I've been resurrected from death. I don't know what my purpose is after that, because, as your fancy friend over here would have said, your life ends for a reason. So why have I been brought back? Because no fuckers decided to tell me that, apart from Shiny cunt over there, who keeps talking about, oh, there's these problems, oh, it's this problem. I can't... He just starts walking. Not walking, he just keeps walking, he tries to burrow down. Yes, I did slip that in there for anyone who's paying
Shiny!
Excuse the language.
So rude.
But Ellipsis would definitely call him that. So
Yeah.
So that's enough for you then?
No, it's enough to keep me going until I work something out.
Work what out?
You want to understand time, and you want to understand how it works. I would just like to understand why we keep doing it. Not we as in... There is a reason that for some reason the moment you were born, you have this constant need for acceptance and for personal growth. It doesn't matter if it's subtle, it doesn't matter if you argue you don't, you definitely do. You're either accepted by other people because you ignore the acceptance, or you are accepted because you are acceptable. There is just a genuine thing where the world seems to be on this weird little path where we have to do something, and I'm on that path right now. I can feel it. I know the path is there. I just don't understand why I'm on the path and where the path is going to. And that's what I need to understand. So if I'm going to go work for Shiny Man, and he's going to tell me all these great things, and I'm going to do some good in the world, that's great. But until then, I will just keep chipping away at the stone and understanding that the mountain will never move.
If you don't like the path, just stop it. The end is set in stone, and when that happens, that happens. But the rest of it is up to you.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, not by any stretch. I just find it so fascinating that you've chosen the means by which you find the why to be an element of blind faith.
It's less blind faith when you can see your deity in front of you.
Yeah.
I can see that he can do something. I know that he has done things because I have fonts of knowledge in my head right now that tell me about everything that the Cognition Knights have done. I can see every pebble that we have knocked in this bloody beach of existence. And for God's sake, why does an oath mean I have to keep talking bloody metaphors and analogies?
Why does he call you the Fallen Knight?
I don't know. That's part of it. I don't get it.
I mean, technically you did die, which could classify.
That could be it. Probably that. But then he's...
That's not quite, because he seems quite cutting when he says it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with death. I'm going to get Matthias out and be like, want someone to talk to about dying? Just lob it over to you.
To
Matthias, like, do you recognise his like shield? Because look at. Just look
looks
at
down at well, shows it at least with his arm, and then if you're throwing him,
he's gone.
Yeah, cool. And off the cliffside. Sorry, but basically
one for athletics.
for a more up to date reference, but basically gods. Anyway.
You can chalk one up, Steve, but you've got still a lot of balancing out to do.
Don't you
And the one he's got done.
So, Matthias looks at the shield and genuinely, his response is he doesn't know. He doesn't recognise it.
Get back in the bag, you get a goldfish.
Get him back in the bag, you get a goldfish.
That's an 18 plus 0. I'd go, yeah, he gets it back in the bag.
Sweet. Next time I see you, I'm getting you a goldfish. Oh no, this is what I've done. Oh no! No! Oh, there's only one goldfish in D&D. That's cool, isn't it? Like,
Suddenly, level 20 has been changed. I had this boss in mind, and this boss was never going to be touched.
But now you've poked the bear.
level 20 to me is going like a net going, come on! Come on!
No, prismatic spray.
Look, Jesus, like, you know death better than most people. And where you are isn't, like, you're not on a path that you can't, like, deviate from. You can do what you want. You've been given all this power by your deity, but you can go stuff it and go holiday, just go like a weekend break. See what happens.
I will stop when there is nothing left to do.
And what will you do then?
Knitting. Crochet.
That's very useful.
There's a good book you can have about crochet.
Also know one that really confused me. I read once a time, which was Brewing Whiskey for Idiots by Grimnir Singebeard. Really got confused because it read as a diary. Anyway.
So what's your latest task then?
Well, I'm going to go fuck up a giant, apparently.
Just you.
I mean, at the moment, yes.
Those odds don't sound particularly favourable.
And have you seen his wings? Pretty impressive.
Giants are quite big though.
Is he sort of static-y?
It was electric blue to begin with and windswept, but no, he's now Bob Ross with a sword.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Just take a happy little moment for that. Anyway, no.
Why do you have to kill a giant?
Because there has been some. And at this point, he's slow. The walker's slowed down. He's been having this conversation with you, and he's gone from more this kind of raging bull to kind of like a pensive one. Apparently, there has been, and I use these words directly, so please don't look at the DM when he says it. There has been a disturbance in the force.
Yeah, carry on.
8.
It's not my fault. But it all went to shit in the 90s.
We haven't said name this week, so that's
I
fine.
know. Said it a lot over the 48 festival though.
You really
I
did.
really did.
It's not my fault that everything went to shit in the 90s.
It really did.
Hashtag 80s, baby. Might have been so good in the 80s.
You'd have been -4.
But I would have been great.
Anywho,
80s teenager.
essentially there are some forces at play that keep dragons and giants from each of us throats. And apparently they are starting to wane, which is why he can do so much apparently recently, which explains some things. But at the same time, we have the issue of there is currently a hill giant to the south of here, which is getting a little too big for his boots. And the next place it can go to is either Mirabar. I can never remember the other place that is next to it. Morgar's Mound.
Morgar's Mound.
Morgar's Mound. Make sure I'm saying that one right. Morgur. It's for yourself, Planchett, especially because you know it's Raven Rock, another site of the Udgar barbarians. Apparently, he's got his eyes on taking Morgo's Mound for his new base of operations because the one down south isn't good enough, and it's currently run by the king, for want of a better word, king of the Hill Giants.
So basically, he wants to start his own little kingdom.
Make a history check.
17.
17. The giants don't have a kingdom technically.
Mm-hmm.
They have areas that that certain races float towards.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I pull my map out quickly. The frost giants stay predominantly above the spine of the world. The fire giants stay more to the east of the area known as the north. So you're looking around, just because my eyes are terrible, and this printing is brilliant. Just so you've all seen a map of Faerun.
Mm-hmm.
The chunk between where the I've scribbled over everything. The
I
chunk.
do have a map somewhere if you need.
Yeah, if you've got your map there, just so you can kind of follow along where I'm talking about. The map, the kind of band that sits below the band that sits below the spine of the world up to about one stone, or yes, you're looking at one stone or Menzoberranzan in the north. If you were to draw a ley line around there with that forest chunk.
Oh, what's the name of the forest?
So you've got the Kingdom of Many Arrows, and then
Yeah.
yes, that cold wood there.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so the band from that forest towards the coast is owned or lived in by predominantly the stone giants. The fire giants take up the eastern side towards the high ice. The hill giants kind of have the central location of just underneath those two bands around the high forest, and then almost circling around from the edge of the I think it's called Aranok, down towards the Troll Claws and Waterdeep and such, is owned by, or at least lived in by, the easiest place to find a cloud giant.
Cloud giant.
Yes. They're all these locations are. I can pop a map for you guys, and also for the Twitter to see what I'm marking off in terms of where I'm locating these. But at the same time, that is in a nutshell where you would find the hordes of different types of giants. However, all of them fall under one regime run by the storm giants because they're the biggest and the baddest. You don't know the location of where the storm giants live. So the idea of a hill giant trying to become a king of the hill giants is somewhat concerning, but also confusing because they all fall under the Storm King. They do not follow. There are lords that control each type of giant, but they all still fall under the regime of the Storm King. Interestingly, just for notes on the map, Southwood seems to be a safe zone.
Interesting.
There's a little chunk of forest just south of the High Forest. Has a small community that lives in it of halflings and gnomes. Look to campaign 1 for notes.
Okay. That's decidedly unusual.
Yes, you would know that the just from that history check that with that kind of like area of hill giants and such, that hill giants wouldn't be up here, and they definitely wouldn't. They're like the king or the lord of the hill giants is far south of here, or at least should be.
It's gone a long way. So do you know... So, to Ellipsis, do you know anything about this giant other than it's the hill giant apparently making a kingdom which is completely like...
I am about to eat my own hat. Obviously not wearing one before anyone fucking says it. And I'm being given brief information by my deity with the intent to deal with said issue on blind faith.
Not to point out the obvious, but that sounds a bit dangerous.
This coming from the woman who accepted a necklace which talks to the lord of one of the Nine Hells and is accepting the power that he gives.
Yeah, it's called employment.
I'm just going to go stop a hill giant taking over a civilian area.
On your own?
On my own, yeah.
And I think that's a little bit I'm highlighting.
Any other suggestions?
We can come along.
I mean, you were really good in that fight in the attic. I fancy the odds, you and me against them.
You do all
I did say we.
Exactly.
We.
I mean, you don't speak for the other two or three.
They
Excuse
spoke
me,
for me last time, so...
I mean, I'm by no means going to... I'm not your parents. I can't tell you you're not allowed to go there. Plot twist, he is your dad. Planchett, I am your father. More 80s references.
Throw myself off something. Handles.
Roll for athletics.
Yeah, athletics to fall, mate.
This is falling with style. 90s reference.
Yay! We're getting closer. You're almost present. By about 20 years.
I wish I was fucking present.
90s were 30 years ago.
Oh. I know, right? I know.
1990s, 30 years, like 20 years ago.
Yeah. I don't like time. I'm just going to figure that one out.
I mean, that's quite good, especially if you sat next to you.
I love you. You're much more youthful than any of us.
Oh, we're fucked. Anywho, right. As the sun slowly starts to set behind the spine of the world. No, wouldn't that be the north? Fucking hell.
Never been specified. It goes from east to whatever.
It's going now. Excuse me, I don't own this map. Also, spoilers!
Right, guys, we better watch this episode back now.
Grimnir was here.
Part of doing it all.
Well, quite frankly, it's getting rather late. Do you not think that now is perhaps not the time to be barreling through in the middle of the night?
She's got a point.
Ninja stealth. I know I'm playing childish words here at this point, but come on. Would you like to be attacked in your bed, or would you like to be attacked in the meeting room where you have a sword
If
in
it's
your
all
hand?
the way down in Mirabai, you're hardly going to get there.
I mean, it's a few
And you
hours
don't
to
want to
Mirabai.
arrive exhausted and...
It's been a very lovely sojourn. For the most of the day, I've rarely got to a point... Well, apart from that brief...
But if you're going to continue walking through the night to get to... I'll just write it down. To get to Morga's Mound, by the time you get there, you'll hardly be on
I can put a
peak
chip
form
in-
against a giant.
I mean, will they be on peak form against me?
Clearly you're not as intelligent as I thought you were.
I mean, I'm very intelligent. That's why I'm suggesting going to attack a thing that has no dark vision in the middle of the dark. I can see quite well in the dark. I know that this thing has a base in the middle of a wood, which means that I have surroundings which I can hide behind and also cover with sound of woodland creatures. I know that these things are very dense but strong, so I would use a ranged assault rather than running right up into the face of it and going, "Hey, big boy, swing at me." Now, I'm not saying that my rage has kind of limited my ability to go and plan this out. I know that it has. I know that I'm going in the very kind of touch paper approach. However, even on my better days, my touch paper is better than most. Because knowledge is power, and my power is unwaning. If Metal Man wants to come help me, he's more than welcome.
Well, I have every intention of heading south as it is.
Call it riding companions. You can continue on as I jump off at my stop.
I did come to travel, so see more of the world. What?
Can I check your map quickly?
Yeah.
Just see roughly where Menzo Brands is in Cantabria. Mainly because I did look at your map when you had it out a minute ago.
Good luck, I've made some notes.
Oh, fuck me.
Menzo Baranzan is, you're looking at where it says Kingdom of Many Arrows.
Yeah?
It should be just south of that.
Yes, there it is. Alright.
If you go to the D&D website, guys, so you're aware of this for the podcast and for the viewers on the stream, if you go to the website and search Faerun map, they have a free link on there, which is the one that I use, and I edit it every now and then to make sure that because like certain cities, I don't like their placement and stuff, which is no comment on the map makers or the game writers, just that I really like the idea of having certain things happen every now and then, so I have to move a location. But that's how D&D works, Steve.
I mean, I can do it, I suppose. It's not too far away from where I need to be. I could tag along.
She's trying really hard to be right-handed so that it's not brand. There you go.
What's that, Stephen? I'm not sure they noticed. Are you feeling more thirsty? Just have another. Oh, what's that there? Down a bit, the glare works. Up a bit. Right, I'm happy to go with you if I need to go where I need to be, and you're not that far away. So, whether I get involved in fighting this thing or not, whatever, it's your choice, but fuck it.
Well, sounds like coming with you.
Cool.
Question, are you flying there and we'll be walking underneath like a bunch of lemons?
I have no idea how I would do that again. I was not expecting that to happen.
But I feel less confident about the whole situation now. Just heads up.
Right, okay, let's do this in a sensible fashion so I don't get the daggers in the back of the head as I walk along from the smart one over there. We will get to, if you would like to join me, we will go to the forest edge. We will camp on the inside of the forest so we can sleep and be as prepared as possible, however you want to prepare for it. We will then spend the first half of the morning travelling towards who I have been informed with a very delightful name, is Gulag. We will be dealing with Gulag come afternoon.
That's
They
not a
have
name with
stupid
baggage.
names, I'm sorry. This is a name that I give it, but naming hill giants...
If you'd prefer to barrel right on in, you give some very convincing arguments.
No, by all means, I'm happy to go camp out. I can sharpen my blade whilst we sleep.
I'm quite not very scared. It's quite fun. Just mostly of that. Waking up to the sound of a man looking at me as he's sharpening a blade. Do not go into a blade sharpening valley.
I mean, you could just keep your eyes closed and then you'll never know.
Shing.
You might know who's looking at you.
Need a shave, boy.
Yeah, actually. Shows my character.
So,
Sweet.
everybody happy?
Yeah!
Yes.
Cool. I'm going to say that we'll skip to the camping. Yeah, you will skip down the side of the mountain. You drop down onto the cragland again, get to the Netherwinter Forest, and you set up camp just on the inside of the tree line. Is there anything that anyone would like to do with their evening of rest?
I'm working on my thing.
Cool.
I'll just write up my notes.
I wrote it down.
Your monocle of sight
Yes,
with
companion sight with
companion vision, isn't it? Or
companion
something?
sight.
We'll say that by evening you've worked out how to link up your lens with the lenses that act as pivot sight. You have this very interesting moment whilst reading about this. Again, reading certain things of notes that you've made about your construct, and also things that you might have in terms of like from previous artificers that you might be learning from. Looking through your notes, you get to a moment where this construct doesn't live. However, you have made an ability for it to process a vision and therefore correspond it to something else. Much like how a camera doesn't understand what it's watching, you've essentially created some sort of like CCTV network between your monocle and the companion. I believe, if I remember rightly, everything is through a sepia glow
I believe so, yes.
Ooh.
with his vision.
Classic Instagram.
Classic Insta filter.
So you don't have to waste those 20 seconds that most hipsters do choosing the right filter. It's already set for you.
Check.
But
Because I purposely didn't write down the information because I hadn't made
remind
it.
me, did I give you at this point, does this one have the pheromone thing or is that later?
Bear with.
It might be in
Officer Mark II.
companion sight.
Link to the site. Can sense breathing and body language of any creature in its field
Yes.
of vision, identify them as friend or foe. Enemies seen through the companion's vision are outlined with a sepia glow.
Yes.
That's all it says.
So it's normal sight, but enemies are highlighted by sepia glow. Excuse me. I think
Yes.
I've miscommunicated my own thing. So for the sake of mechanics in this, because it's in your goggles, you need to say you're looking through your goggles for the first thing to see that you'd see through that.
Okay.
I need to reword it in the notes, I think, for that, where I think it would be a case of you don't know. So me looking at Adam now, I wouldn't go, he's an enemy, because he is giving me no sign that he's about to attack me. However, the moment he then goes like that, the tensing of his muscles before he comes round, you get some snap.
What about, for example, so if, for example, I were to send him further into the tree line to look for this
Hill giant. He wouldn't see it as an enemy.
Okay.
It's only essentially
the point at which something becomes hostile.
Yeah, it's the sense of, that's why I meant by the breathing and the body language of a person. They kind of go, oh, this person is about to snap on you.
Okay.
And again, it's got to be a case of you're looking through the goggles to see this.
Yes.
I won't say that you have to choose. If it had just been that you'd just made the monocle, I would go, you choose to put the monocle on and see it then. Or I was going to be quite mean and be like, you have to choose to look through the right lens properly. Discussing the thing we're going to discuss, discussing the thing we did last week about multiple vision, you would then have to start making a mechanic where you choose which one you're viewing through and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But until then, you've made that.
Yeah. I don't
Cool.
think that's a problem
No, that's cool.
with how I imagine using it.
Coolly beans. Anything that anyone else would like to do in their rest?
I'd like to whisper to Hororae, please.
Stage whisper for the
Loud
podcast.
for the
Oh,
podcast.
yes. Hi. Alright.
What?
I was just thinking. You know the whole like finding the chronomancers and all that?
Mm.
I mean, I really can't help you with the whole time thing. I think it's really not my area, to say the least.
I have assumed as much as well.
But I was... Thank you? No, that's not good. But I thought the best... I was thinking about it, because I do research. I can do research. And I thought the best place to look for existing necromancers and chronomancers would be local places in their censuses. And I'm more than help. You know, if you want some help and a hand with it, I can help with that.
It's not an awful idea. I mean, I hardly feel like it's the kind of thing one would document, perhaps.
You never know. So you find all sorts of weird stuff in documents if you look hard enough. Just saying. There's some really interesting marginalia that exists. What? What?
I can't tell who's speaking anymore, if it's Kyra or Planchett.
It's true. It's true.
Lots of cocks on trees.
Noted.
Thank you. Sorry. Helps out with me as well because like history and stuff, and since it's good for looking for that sort of thing. So
Okay.
awesome. I'm gonna go sleep.
Okay.
Thank you.
You do that.
She didn't bite my head off.
I'm just going to bed.
Cool. Lovely. Grand and grand. Anything that anyone else would like to do in the rest before we travel on to the last part of the evening?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Cool beans. Right, so you wake the next morning, everyone aware of what's going to happen. Ellipsis has apparently waited round to see if any of you are coming for this, but makes his intention very clear that he is heading towards Gulag's camp. You're allowed to say no now, but do you choose to go or do you choose to tell him to sod himself?
Going.
Going.
Go.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm going to look at like you two and go, why are you coming? Because this has got nothing to do with you studying learning
I'm
history,
just
and this has got nothing
interested.
to do with you studying time. If anything, I kind of think you're here just to see a man attack his own faith. So I think you're here to see if his faith is strong enough that he survives or not, personally.
It's an interesting perspective. It certainly wasn't how I'd thought of it.
I mean, I'm glad I'm being talked to like I'm not fucking here.
I thought you fucked off.
I
Sorry.
mean, I'm stood around waiting.
In which case, 1 minute, I love you. You've got scary wings. I'm going in because death. Sweet.
I love you. You like the right people. Didn't realise we're on this basis after 2 days together, Klaxis. This is the start of something beautiful.
Start something new.
Please don't. Get the fuck out of my house. You do not get to make those references here.
It's a
The
noughties
second one.
reference.
The second one today.
It's just line up.
Get out.
That's right, you think you would.
Intrigue. Shall we?
Let's go kill a bastard.
Quick question.
Yes,
How many hours will it take for us to get to the
about 2.
Awesome. I'm gonna hit myself with some mage armor.
This is sticks.
Sticks. Just
Myself with some sticks.
yeah.
As she turns into a bard as a drummer. So you travel for about 2 or so hours into the tree line. Ellipsis just charging through. As the trees start to thin. Welcome to the 87th of autumn for anyone who's following. As the trees start to thin, and not by technically natural means, you see the stomping ground of Gulag spreading out before you. The trees bow and snap from the travel of such a big brute through the trees, and have been crumpled into a mound on top which sits the hulking mess that is Gulag, somehow dwarfed by the dead hill giant lying next to him. Excuse me, I forgot to add that to the map. Stood in front of him as he just sits with the leg of some sort of cow or something that he's heated through fire, just eating the meat off it as most hill giants do. There are 3 goblins that look up at him that you recognise immediately.
Curses!
Curses and salutations.
Foiled again.
Animal carcasses and mulled bugbears lay strewn across the floor, and the fetid odour of rotting blood and meat hang in the air. Can I have a Constitution saving throw from everyone, please?
Wow.
Pivot doesn't have
I was
to.
going to say.
8.
8, lovely.
Bodes well.
18.
18,
Oh, well done.
16.
16, lovely.
Surprised in myself.
Planchett,
Am I puking?
yes.
Yay!
The rest of you, with your Klaxis, with your history of clerics and death, you are used to this smell. It burns the nostrils, but it doesn't bring any unwanted reaction. Hororae, for the first time possibly ever, you have mass death hanging around you, but the smell is somehow not as off-putting as you thought it would be.
That says a lot about you.
I mean, I lived in real inner city. I'm not going
Planchett.
to assume that they have a good
Yeah.
system.
As an academic and someone who has rarely had to play with dead bodies and such,
Just desiccated mice.
the smell...
Desiccated.
Yeah, it's dry in there.
I'm picturing the coconuts.
Yeah.
Oh God!
Yeah,
Just
that's
like
the
mice
same.
mummies. That's what comes in my head. I
Sorry.
think desiccated, and I think the tiny bat. That's what I think of.
Scene.
The smell from a few hundred feet back was starting to give you that kind of gag reflex, but seeing the bodies of everything in front of you is the final nail in the coffin, and you hurl. Everything comes up, and you are poisoned for the next minute. You have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks for the next minute. Don't worry, that'll only affect you for, depending on what happens next, about 10 rounds.
Yay! So it's attack rolls and
ability checks.
And
Making you even more useless than you already were.
hey, I'm quite useful. Thank you very much, you little twat. Oh.
Pivot stood behind, just nope. Shaking his head. Anyway, cool. Ellipsis also seems to be quite unaffected. And on the last page of the notes for tonight. As you get to the almost with poetic timing or narrative timing, you get to the edge of the clearing that is his kind of little stomping ground, and you see him just swing down with the meat that he's holding in his hand and just squishes the 3 goblins in front of him.
Oh, I'm quite happy with that.
Well,
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. How far were they?
So you guys,
That's annoying.
you're about 10, 15, 20, 30, about 50, 60 feet away from Gulag, who has not noticed you yet. You're currently sat in the tree line, all walking up towards... Yes, Klaxis, you have a face.
Yeah, I'm happy to. A nice face.
Oh, I'm sorry, darling.
Grr.
You notice that the tree line, although quite sparse on the closest edges of this clearing, has not been affected around the clearing as such, so you could use the tree line for cover if you wanted. What would you like to do? Ellipsis stands, kind of drops onto one knee, gets the long sword in his hand and just kind of watches for a minute, just watching what Gulag is doing.
Hororae is going to very quietly whisper to Ellipsis. Any extension on your brilliant plan?
You a sword person or are you a...
Oh, come now. No.
Okay, tell Pivot to stick him with the pointy end. Technically a 90s reference.
Yes, it is. Congratulations. Tick, tick, tick.
Because the books came out in the 90s.
Oh dear.
And I read them in the
And
90s.
What I'm going to say is, hope that today isn't the day where your fate runs out.
My suggestion on this one, don't have faith in anyone other than yourself. Because that's a lot easier to believe in.
You literally have that big deity.
And isn't that the most, of all of us, the most ironic thing for you to say?
I mean, I didn't say I believe in my deity's powers. I just have proof that he teaches me how a spell works. I can do the spell.
Guys.
My faith is solid.
Guys. All this is lovely.
Yeah, I know.
But
I'm still
there's-
watching.
There's corpses.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Isn't that great?
Lots of dead.
Fine. Do you want to go for this in?
Free them, yes.
If you want to go back, go back.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just thinking that maybe we should. How do you do that?
Do you want to go for? Do you want to go for
I'm good
a?
at long range.
Okay, long range. Stay long range then. Do you want to go for this in a? Do you want to go for this in a subtle kind of diplomatic approach that then turns into a fight, or do you just want to jump in fighting?
Well,
I
just
think
one
that's
of them.
your choice. It's your mission.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I mean,
Follow
if you
your
guys
lead.
want to join in,
start to edge round, sneak round the
Would-
woodland. I'm just gonna leave. Sneak round the woodland to the side. I'm gonna wait to where it's like opposite him on the stage right side of the board.
sorry, you want to come around this
Yeah.
area?
So I
Cool.
want to sneak around there if possible.
Make a stealth check for me,
I
darling.
used my good stealth earlier, didn't I? Yeah.
I'll go with advantage, sorry, because he doesn't know you're there.
14.
14, lovely. Yeah, you managed to just sneak around the edge. About there, right for you?
Yep.
So you come up essentially just as right flanking of.
And I'm just gonna wait until someone steps
Yeah.
forward and just be like looking at him.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm also gonna check to make sure there's no like reasons around.
No reasons.
Fucking sweet.
Oh, sorry, I skipped a thing. Could you make a perception check for me?
Yep. 17.
17, lovely. As you're looking around for raisins, you get this sense
I'm
that.
just gonna say ravens just so they know.
Yes.
Reasons. Yes.
You get this sense that there is something in the corner of your eye every time you're looking around for them, and it's kind of like black smoke. But every time you turn to it, it dissipates.
It's quite nice that. What?
Has you mean him?
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
everybody.
Just Klaxis, or at least to Klaxis. Just you. You haven't been told anything by the others.
That's what, yeah, cool. Sorry. I've got a stupid idea.
Oh! I like stupid ideas.
It's the worst idea I've ever had. Something you definitely do.
So,
This didn't go well.
I'll quickly check with you two because you've got the time for him to walk around to his corner bit.
Yeah.
What do? You've said
Have
that
I
you're
got
waiting on.
good eye line on?
Directly, he's a couple of feet. So the mound kind of goes up. So he's sat on a hill in the centre. It's about
Oh, cool.
10-15 feet above your current.
So the only way it could be more insight was if he was glowing.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm going to stay where I am, hidden. Okay, do you want to roll for that, Harvey?
Make a stealth check for me. Yeah. I'd go with like the edge of the 15 sort of thing is like this.
Which way she's facing while she's rolling, sorry.
It's facing that way currently.
Cool.
That is an entire 4.
4. Lovely.
Great.
I've
Well,
long as
now
you-
I don't need to worry about it.
As long as you don't
Thanks.
move, you're fine. Cool. Hororae.
Part of me kind of wants to try and move Pivot, but I don't think he'll be very quiet. Yeah, so we're not going to do that.
Calvin Harris is here.
No.
Is that a reason?
Yeah, well, I'm range attacker, so I'm okay. Just have to take a few rounds to Pivot to get anywhere useful. What are you looking like that about Paul?
Would you say that you're trying to get Pivot to the group, or at least to Ellipsis?
Well, if we're going to start attacking, then Pivot will
Yeah.
run at it.
Cool.
I'd like to move him closer, so he stands a chance of getting there sooner, but I'm pretty sure it'll be too noisy.
Cool. having this conversation with Ellipsis. Ellipsis kind of goes, well, that ruins the diplomatic approach then if we're going to go in all guns blazing. If he needs to just...
Well, it's up to you if you'd like to be more diplomatic, but if the ultimate goal is to kill him...
10 seconds. He just looks at the blade, and you notice as he brings up the longsword, there are runes running down the blade. He goes, nope, doesn't see the word diplomacy anywhere on this. Fuck it. And just starts charging.
You. Awesome.
And I'd like you all to roll initiative.
Fucks.
I'm going to say because of his charging, he would get that far. He's
That is fucking hilarious.
30, so 5, 10, 15, 20,
Is it?
25,
What did you
30.
get?
Gets in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, great.
So what have we got then, my loves? That's a 1. Hi, Ellipsis.
Oh, okay.
But he charged. He has to have
No, it's fine.
reasonable.
Well, he gets first attack, surely, no? Like,
Yeah.
You're all going to get a round of surprise. Adam, could you
I'll
give
go
me
for
that?
it. I got 12.
12, lovely for Klaxis to have a 12. Hororae,
Hororae got 7.
7, and then for
And then Pivot got 16.
16, lovely, and finally
Oh my
got
god! That's so cruel.
I got 2.
Suzy. 2,
With
lovely.
a natural 1 roll.
It's fine because Ellipsis got a natural 1 too. And
Oh,
he
my
doesn't have an
natural
initiative
one.
bonus, so he's a 1.
Oh, I'm faster
If you've got a -1 initiative and you roll a 1, if you get an initiative of 0 and you fall over straight away. Oh, I've dropped all my things.
It's
Right,
going to take me a full round
so-
to pick everything up.
I'm going to give you all a round of bonus. You're essentially getting a surprise round on him, so you can do exactly what you want to do as if a normal round of initiative.
My fun plans have been ruined.
Wasn't your cue that? Wait a minute, because that could also be in that as well. Your cue was to see if someone was fighting.
Yeah, well, someone's running
So-
in, so this is like that. Yeah.
That's your cue to do your thing. Then you get your round of
I
initiative.
don't know, my fun idea was kind of spoiled by someone running in before I had a chance to do it, and it's fine because that's how this works. I wanted to throw.
What did you want to do?
I wanted to throw my tie time.
Make a ranged attack for me.
What am I adding? Just Dex.
Dex, yes.
14.
14.
Just so, like, you'd be like, what the hell's going on? What? And then just confuse him.
It hits.
Gulag's like, what the fuck?
Roll a d4 plus your dexterity.
He gets 5 bludgeoning. this confused, like, he's like, what is skull? Why is angry skull? Who threw it up?
Lovely.
You're beautiful.
I didn't know I could fly!
Thanks for making me a part of this.
How do I want to do this? Cool.
I don't respect the dead because he's undead. I have no respect.
We'll start at the top of the
for
round. So you've all seen that Ellipsis has just charged in. He's charged 30 feet into the clearing. Gulag has immediately kind of looked up, very confused. We start at the top of the round with Pivot. What does Pivot want to do?
Pivot wants to charge at him.
Yeah, go for it.
He's got a speed of 40 feet.
So we're going to go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40.
So let's make it a dash.
Okay, 5, 10, 15, 20. Let's get you there, I'd say.
He's got 40, so I want to be like... I mean, what I
Currently-
kind of love, but I don't think you'll allow because rules, is him to just like fucking charge and smash into him.
Make an athletics check for me. As Ellipsis, obviously. Ellipsis as a Pivot,
Yeah.
sorry.
Athletics.
Yes.
15.
Roll again for me.
Oh. 11.
11, lovely. I'm going to go with, because Gulag is currently sat on his ass, and although smaller than, Pivot just rugby tackles him and is now lying on top of Gulag. Just looking down at him in this kind of like, I don't know fashion. I just got told to run here.
Especially just falling over, like Baymax at the stairs.
Lovely. Anything else for him?
No, 'cause that's
Lovely.
that's
Klaxis.
I'd like to run towards him, please.
Cool. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 gets you there.
Sweet, and
So you charge up just as Pivot lands on him. You run up just standing next to the two of them, looking down on Gulag, who, although on his back, you're still kind of having to look directly forward to see over him.
Yep. And then just swing at him with my longsword.
Lovely. Go for attack. You have advantage because of him being prone.
That's good, because that was a 1. 16.
16 hits.
Sweet, so that's 1d8 plus 4, so that's 7 slashing.
7 slashing, lovely.
2 lightning.
2 lightning, lovely.
And 1 radiant.
And 1 radiant, lovely. So, sorry, you said you slash your blade across your palm. So as you draw the blade, you slash it. The blood just starts to drip off the blade, and there's this again that kind of like blue acrid kind of energy that you saw in Ellipsis earlier the previous day, where the lightning just starts to fork up the side of the blade. You swing down, just carving into the meat, and the blubber just opens up a bit. No blood comes out, but you kind of see the sinews of fat and such as it just carves into the side of this creature. It roars out, kind of trying to push up against Pivot. Anything else for you?
No.
Lovely. That brings us to Hororae Moro.
Because he's massive,
Yes.
would it count as like half cover or anything?
Nope. He is sat on top of him, so that it's a bit like
Jenga!
yeah. You're hitting the bottom block rather than.
Beaut! I'm going to shoot him with my crossbow.
Now there's a rule here where ranged attacks on a prone victim are disadvantaged. However, when that prone thing is like twice the size of half the people at the room,
And he's on top of it.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that as a ruling instead. Rather than disadvantage, I will give him a +2 to his AC.
Okay.
So roll for attack for me from there.
Natural 1.
Natural 1. I'm gonna say, rather than you taking damage, although that's the house rule, you're because it's crossbow, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The drawstring that pulls back comes out of the latch, and you're gonna have to spend an action to fix it, basically.
God damn it!
So as you release it, the clip kind of lets loose the arrow, which just goes skyrocketing across the way, just completely missing your target. However, the string goes over the clip, and you've got to pull it back again and place it in. When you reload, you've also got to take an action to place the string as well.
Yeah, so my next turn will be done doing that.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Anything else for you?
No.
Lovely. Planchett.
Yo, I'm going to move out of my pupil.
Cool. I would say with.
That's me.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I would have moved up. Sorry, I'd have moved up to the edge of the so that I've got. I'm not. Yeah.
I'd go there.
Yeah, that would be.
So you just sort of step up into the tree line's edge, sorry, and you want to move.
About there or there.
So you're sneaking around the tree line, gets you about there.
Yep.
Lovely. So you still got eye line at this point.
Yep. I'm going to try and hit him with an Eldritch Blast.
Lovely. Remember, you have disadvantage. I'm going to say because of times and stuff like that for the next 3 rounds.
Okay. So that is
The advantage of chatter.
That's bollocks. That 9 plus that's 14.
14 just hits.
Just hits.
Roll for attack. Roll for damage. Sorry.
That is 5 force damage.
5 force damage. Lovely. Anything else for you?
I am good right now.
Sorry, you said Eldritch Blast, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Lovely. So you bringing up your hand again, you kind of not really sure where this is coming from, but you grip with your one hand. You grip your necklace. The other hand, you bring it up in kind of like a Iron Man fashion and just loose a bolt of energy. You don't actually see the energy of this one. You just kind of notice there's kind of like a disturbance in the air around your hand as this force flies from your hand and slams into the blubber, which kind of ripples at the attack. Anything else for you?
That's it for me, thank you.
Lovely. We get to King Idiot himself, who is now Grimnir. He is going to. Cool. He is going to charge up to the creature with his speed 5, 10, 15. That gets him there. He is going to take his long sword attack, but he's going to use Divine Strike because that's the only thing I made him a paladin for, obviously. Gains 2d8 damage on top for his first level spell slot. Lovely. Oop. Loses spell slots. He needs to roll an attack, which he has advantage on because of the thing. That's going to hit. Cool. So 3d8 plus 3. I think that's, 3d8 plus 3. 3. 8. 10, so 13 points of damage. Lovely. So you see Ellipsis just charging up, shield still on one arm, the blade kind of coming into an underswing, completely making sure that he doesn't hit Pivot at all, and just starts carving away at the legs of this creature or this hill giant that you know to be a hill giant. Don't need to do false names here. Lovely. That's that. Back to the top of the round, and the surprise round is over. Master Pivot.
I mean, because it's Jenga, he just kind of wants to unarm strike him where he is, and he's even going to try and get up.
He kind of looks around and sees that Ellipsis and Klaxis are both either side of him, just swinging at this thing. So he just kind of looks down and very slowly just brings the fist back and slams into the face. Roll for attack with advantage.
Yay! Yes. First proficiency, which is 2, so 19.
Hits. Roll for damage.
Hell, maths. Why not? Fuck's sake. 3, 7.
7. Lovely.
Bludgeoning.
Lovely. So he just pulls his fist back and slams into the face of this hill giant who as you started to hear the noises of him roaring, and so she just goes, "Ow! Ow!" Is the most you get from as his mouth is pommeled in by a Pivot. Anything else for him?
No.
Lovely. Can I have a athletics check from Pivot for me, please?
Yep. Athletics. 24.
Fuck me. So
He's pretty good.
we get to Gulag's turn, who kind of realizing that he's trapped there, just starts to try lift
He's heavy.
lift Pivot off him, but Pivot just
He
kind
is
of
400 pounds.
He's in a sink if we go through anyway.
Pivot.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Pivot just kind of in that kind of way that you know that weird
You
thing
just
of
go dead weight.
when you think you're lighter in some weird way. He just thinks heavy, and Gulag just kind of starts to lift him up and then just drops back down onto him. I'm gonna give him a Constitution. He's fine.
Oh.
Right,
So, it will do.
that will bring us to Klaxis. Klaxis, your turn.
I'm going to move around to the back just so.
Yeah, so you start to skirt around the back.
Strafing, whatever the word
Yep.
is.
Flanking.
Not in public. And I'll give him another slice of the bomb, so.
Lovely, you've got advantage still.
23.
23 hits, roll for damage.
So that is 10 slashing.
10 slashing.
Rite of Storm gives him 2 lightning.
2 lightning.
And Rite of Dawn gives him 1 radiant.
1 radiant. Lovely. So again, that energy just burning on the sword, it's starting to glow stronger and stronger with each attack as you get the blood of your own rites mixing in with the blood that's starting to seep out of the hill giant, as it kind of almost like the sword is absorbing energy from the hill giant. Anything else for you?
You're very loud.
Noise pollution is a problem. Anyway, Hororae.
I will repair my crossbow.
Lovely. So you spend your round repairing your crossbow. Do you want to move at all, or?
Yeah, I don't really see the point of staying hidden. I might just kind of skirt round, kind of counterclockwise, coming out of the tree line.
Yeah, so you're coming around this way.
Yeah.
Lovely. You have how much speed do you have?
I have a speed of 30 feet.
Yeah, you get about there.
That's cool.
Cool.
Just making sure that I'm definitely not going to hit anybody.
About there.
That's
Sorry.
what I'm after.
My maths are doing silly.
Thank you.
Lovely. So you just start making your way slowly towards the base of this mound that they're working on, kind of methodically fixing your crossbow as you go. You look like you had something you wanted to do there. You right?
No, I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking about how my character's Billy Connolly. And then I was trying to picture the show which she has the beard and long hair.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, it's that one. And then I was remembering the routines in that show. So I'm really sorry. It just had to happen.
No, that's fine. Because I'm going to go home and watch that after this.
Yeah.
Anyway, lovely.
As she's edging around, she's just muttering to herself. Shut
I will make a better crossbow after this fucking fight.
Fucking will. It's on my
Planchett.
to-do list.
Planchett.
I'm gonna come out of the line, tree line until I get in a better eye line.
Okay,
for...
speed of 30.
Yeah.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25
Perfect.
about that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Lovely.
And I'm gonna whack him with an Eldritch Blast again.
Lovely, roll for attack.
Ah, ha, 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 ha. Natural 1.
Lovely, roll damage for me still.
Oh, yay, it's a 7.
7 force damage.
Sorry, anybody.
Cool.
Is it me?
You bring your hand up and you loose the energy. However, you get this weird quaking sensation down your arm. Take 2 points of force damage for me.
You really are wrong when he breaks his wand.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And you notice that as you saw the last time, the energy of it, like disrupting the air around it, just skirts towards the hill giant, but then kind of has a weird curve and just slams into the back of Ellipsis. Who? No, he's alright. He's not going to fall over. Anything else for you?
Can I shout, sorry, still practicing, as a bonus?
Yes, you may. As
Sorry.
he shouts, "Fuck off!" as a action. Yes. Anyway, that brings us to Ellipsis, who is going to again enjoying the swing. Has advantage. He's going to use his divine strike still. That just hits. 6, 14, 21 plus 3, 24. Boop, boop, boop. So again, just hacking away. You start to notice, especially as someone with blood maledict and such like that, the blood seems to be seeping and kind of almost coalescing around you, but starts. It might just be the trick of the light or something like that, but you know, it feels like it's kind of pooling around you specifically. Klaxis, sorry. That is Ellipsis' turn. Brings us back to the top of the round with Pivot.
Smashy, smashy.
Smashy, smashy. Roll for attacks with advantage.
Good. I rolled 2 natural ones.
Roll the damage.
Oh,
Oh, that is
it came out of my box, but. 7, 8.
It's Barbara Windsor when you need
12.
it. 12. Lovely. Now the rule is, obviously, that
Yep.
Pivot is going to take 12 points of damage.
Yep.
Now how the fuck do I explain this? It's my question to myself as I go, you're the DM, dickhead.
Does he hurt
Just
himself or us? Or like me and...
Right. Pivot, essentially, getting quite cocky and confident with himself, is slamming into the hill giant. However, the hill giant has basically got to a point now where he's noticing that Pivot is a very simple creature as well, and he moves his head, and the fist goes slamming into the earth. However, it is slamming into basically stone and wood underneath it, so there's a bit less give than the fleshy body that he's been slamming into.
Mm-hmm.
And his arm basically kind of not cripples it, but there's definitely kind of like a dent in the metal.
I said 12, didn't I?
Yes.
5.
Lovely. Can I have another athletics check, this time with disadvantage from Pivot?
Athletics.
Yes, please.
15.
15, lovely. He is not thrown away. I'm just going to say that he is kind of almost like just rolled off. So they're both now prone next to each other. But Gulag basically rolls Pivot off him and stands up, staring directly down into Ellipsis' face and just grins. That brings us to Klaxis. So, yeah, he's still taking the same amount of space, so you're fine.
Yeah. Sweet, so over here.
Swing for a
Natural 20.
natural 20. Lovely.
So that's... Oh, fucking rolled a 2. So 8 slashing.
8 slashing.
2 lightning.
2 lightning.
And 8 radiant.
How do you want to do this?
Oh, smuggling.
Smuggling. Okay, I can do that for you.
Yeah, I kind of want to... don't want it to. Oh no, because he's alive, so I kind of have to be slightly respectful. So quick and smug.
Okay, so as he gets up and he kind of focuses...
Quick and smug.
as
In character.
in character.
And real life.
Oh my god.
As he stands up and focuses all his energy on Ellipsis, kind of thinking that he's got the best of the group now, he's finally up and has the ability to do stuff. You just kind of jump up and slam the blade into the back, just next to the spine, and slide down, dragging it as the blubber just gives way. Your lightning kind of almost cauterizing the wound as it goes down, and he drops onto he just drops onto his knees and then down to the side of the mound, rolling slowly, and that is the round.
Put my bloody hand on his forehead and went.
Can I see where my arrow went? My one arrow that really pitifully shot off.
No, it went off too far into the distance.
Do I notice anything happening with the blood at all now, or is it still being
Make a
weird?
perception check for me.
Cool.
Or an Arcana check of your choice.
I'm going perception.
Yep.
13.
Lovely. You notice, and this is this is the blood specifically because you requested that to look at it, but it's something that you and Hororae have mentioned before, so I'm going with that as well. You get a sensation that the blood is slowly coalescing around you, and it looks like it's pooling towards you. But you get the sense that that's possibly something to do with the depressions in the mound that you stood on. However, because it's something that you're focused on as well, as you watch the body slowly release whatever soul or energy that kept it running, and it kind of deflates almost as you're watching, and you look up from the blood towards the hill giant itself. Because it was perception, you get this kind of almost like watching what happened, but in a very light, nearly imperceptible way, the way that the force damage from the Eldritch Blast did, where there's a slight disruption in the air that travels outwards in the clearing and then settles.
Does Hororae notice that?
Make a perception check for me. With disadvantage, I'd say, because you're not specifically looking for it. 8. Sorry, I should be fair. You are also allowed to make an Arcana check of that instead if you wanted. Or is it the same?
I would prefer an Arcana check.
Yeah?
7, 8. I can't do maths.
What's the numbers?
7 and 6.
7 and 6, so 13.
13.
Lovely. You notice in the set. Notice the same disruption in the air, but you notice that there is this kind of less than imperceptible, just fainter than anything, almost like a trick of the light itself, that there are lines travelling from the hill giant to each person around it, as if you are somehow connected by a light, and then it fades out as the disruption in the air finishes.
I was just sort of bandaging my hand up.
Did that look like anything I've seen before, e.g.
Would you
electricity?
say? Would you? I was going to say that.
For example,
it looks kind of like sunlight beaming through, like almost like when you have that little break in the window or the window cover that then lets sunlight through in a dark room. It has that kind of like yellowish with, you can see the dust motes that are floating in it. It looks like that, but very faint. As we're coming up to 10 o'clock, I will wrap this up here with one final little bit. So as you guys realise that obviously you're just here to kill this creature with Ellipsis, Ellipsis walks over to the body, and you noticed it already, but it's more apparent now that he is physically going over to it. He grabs this gold chain that was hanging around Gulag's neck and clips it, and then starts to pull it away from the body. It's very, very fine, almost like jewellery rather than like a link, almost like the kind of industrial kind of chain. But at the middle of it, a pendant sits, kind of like a football of almost like green jade hanging off some sort of like golden clasp thing that's holding on to the ball. Like I say, green orb, green ball type thing, which he just kind of looks down to, and then takes his backpack off and puts it into there.
I'm gonna go pick up Matthias.
Lovely, you go get Matthias.
Do I see him take the
Orb.
orb?
Yes.
Would I recognise the orb, like historically speaking?
Make a history check for me.
Am I still on disadvantage?
No, the minute's passed, you're fine.
Cool. That is 18 plus 6.
18 to 6, 24. With all the information that you've slowly been remembering and stuff like that, and relearning, for want of a better word, the conversation that the remembering of Acererak being the lich that made things, and also with the conversation about dragons and giants, this is one of the orbs that Acererak created in the Dragon and Giant War 600 years ago. You knew that the green giant orb was given. The green orb was given to the hill giants, or at least the hill giant lord. So apparently, Gulag, when he took over, what you use assumption at least to look at the large creature that's next to Gulag, and discern that may have been the previous hill giant lord, who Gulag has killed to create himself into a new king.
Ooh.
And that is where we shall pick up next session. So, because we're not doing the old milestone XP, unless you want me to, I can tell you
It's
specifically.
entirely up to you.
I mean, I have no issue with it because, again, the only time it will affect you is like when you get those individual award type thing. 1,800 for that, plus 1,500. You each receive divided by 4. Let's call it 490 for fun. 490 XP.
That's
So that should
1,390?
yeah, 1,390 apart from Klaxis, who is on 1,440. Lovely. Cool.
That's still level 3, isn't it?
It's still level 3, yeah.
That's cool. Awesome.
Lovely, my loves.
Oh.
Well,
Oh.
that was a fun session. Thank you very much for those who stuck around to the end. Thank you for those who didn't, because, you know, if you're not going to stick around to the end, I just can't waste my time on you. Anyway,
We still love you.
still love you. I'm
Please
joking,
don't
of course.
alienate our viewers.
Yeah, because that comment at the end of the sessions that we've run for 74 episodes, campaign 1, and yeah, now's the moment they go, you know what? That's Steve, bit of a dick. Don't think I agree with his ethics. They said that in episode 1. But, so, announcement that we need to remember, because we haven't said it. There will be no session next week, I believe. No one's available.
Not unless you can actually meet somewhere else.
I mean,
Let's go camping, guys.
you guys have...
Oh, my family camping holiday.
basically everyone in the team has plans. It's just that the meeting point is also unavailable. So even
I could give you keys.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine. You can have a break. It's been.
And then I'll watch it from my tent. Hey guys.
Just every night, Klaxis will be punched if he keeps talking to Hororae like that, just because I'm not there.
That is true, actually. No, you can't play next week because I will not have you playing Hororae.
I know exactly how Hororae works. You're so simple. It's.
How dare you.
I am cynical.
Oh, the world is really bad because we believe things every now and then, and I don't. I'm joking.
I see the soft inner sides of horror.
There's no soft inner side of it. It's all
There is. You
mechanical.
just gotta squint.
She's literally her own
Squint.
automaton. She just doesn't know it yet.
I can't, we're
Spoilers!
actually hurting Hannah. We're genuinely hurting Hannah.
I know. but I exist for one reason alone. So, but yes, no session next week. So, podcast listeners, Thursday when you hear this, don't worry about Sunday. And then we will not be seeing you until it would be. Do the numbers for me, lads.
Next month?
Yes, the next session will be
We're
the
only
second.
having 1 week.
The next session will be the 2nd of June,
End of June.
which, yes, is only a week off, but it just means that there'll be no podcast episodes on the 27th or the 30th, which is really lucky, actually, because I'm moving that week.
It's almost like we timed it.
No, it's not.
No,
No. You bastard.
You can just say yes.
I mean,
and then
like
you're
I-
close.
Like I would, stop doing D&D just for moving.
That is also true.
Thank you for moving my sofa. I'm trying to write campaign notes. Murder. Anyway,
I can just imagine it on like the cardboard boxes. You've been packing. You're like, oh, for the thing. But
kitchen 1d4.
That's
Right, yeah. So
tell that to Caesar.
Ooh, what about a bread knife? That's quite messy. I use bread knives to cut into things that can't be into.
Okay,
I think we're done. I think
Yeah.
we're done now.
no session next week. No podcast the week after. Back on the 2nd. For the podcast, that means we're back on the 3rd and the 6th. And although there's nothing else to remember, Steve, you've just panicked because you went, no one knows.
Really pooped. It was really close.
Yeah.
Buy tickets!
Buy tickets.
Buy tickets.
Otherwise,
Buy
I'm basically
tickets.
going to be running an alignment unknown one shot
Yeah,
with
we'll
alignment
just be
unknown.
moving the location to the Y.
No, you have one person who's coming, so we'll guest roll.
Yay! I mean, legit, we should just invite her on for an episode instead. It's great.
Yeah, save yourself some money. Just come and be on the episode. It'll be
Let's
hilarious.
not tell them that. Come! Oh, Patreon. Check it out.
Yes, I
It's
did that at the
amusing
beginning of the
just
episode.
for-
Don't you worry.
I'm just
No, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. I'm keeping it
I'm
Yes.
actually really excited.
I've recently been rereading the notes because obviously we've advertised it enough that we've had help from Wizards of the Coast. They have given us a one shot that we're allowed to run to help. If you are familiar with the Adventurers League sessions, because I can see it on the side there. If you're familiar with the Adventurers League campaigns for Waterdeep Dragon Heist, you may have worked with this, but because it's AU and because we also have only been given help with it and we've not said that we would work it word for word, there's some toying with it as well.
Steve can't just run something from a
What's
book.
that? I just have to follow this one linear line? But what about these 16 I just thought about while sleeping? Anyway. Welcome to DMD Notes with... anyway, that's a podcast coming out soon. Anyway, goodbye and have a good evening. And we need a new sign out. You know, like...
Yeah.
One of a time.
Have one of the time for anyone. No. What was that? No, I knew, but I've never heard you do that.
I love Buffy as a kid.
Like,
Gave me a lot of nightmares.
we'll have a competition at the end of this. If you can think of our new sign out, I want something along the lines of Creepy in a Crime, Neva's D&D. Like, for those who watch Talks Machina, you've got it.
My
But,
constellations.
Can't do that.
Hail
Hail
me.
me.
Hail Satan.
Fuck's sake.
No, they've already had Satanic Panic and D&D.
Oh,
Competition.
Here's where it becomes just own your
For the next session, on the second...
Own your cake.
Remember, own your king. Second, I will use your sign out if you tweet us. Bye-bye.